Picture this. You open your eyes to a world painted entirely in shades of rust and ochre, a silent desert stretching out under a faint pink sky. There are no birds singing, no wind rustling through trees, no distant hum of traffic, only the constant, low thrum of life support systems and the soft breath of the few other souls sharing this tiny, sealed world with you. You are on Mars, you are one of the first, and the greatest challenge you face isn't the thin atmosphere, the radiation, or the cold. It's the profound, unshakable isolation. The knowledge that home is now an impossibly bright blue dot in the sky, millions of miles and countless months away. Your survival, and the survival of this entire bold endeavor, hinges on something far more fragile than any piece of machinery: the human mind. We often envision the first Mars colony as a triumph of engineering, a marvel of rockets, habitats, and life support, and it will be. But the real story, the untold heart of this mission, is psychological. The most advanced technology in the world cannot prepare a person for the emotional weight of living in a place where every breath is manufactured, every sunset is seen through a visor, and rescue is a concept that simply doesn't exist. The success or failure of humanity's first permanent off-world home will be written not in steel and code, but in the mental fortitude, the empathy, the resilience, and the social cohesion of the people who build it. This is the emotional blueprint of the first Mars colony, and it is being designed right now in labs and simulations on Earth by psychologists who understand that our greatest adventure will be our greatest test of spirit. In this video, we are going on a journey into the mind of the Martian settler. We will uncover the cutting-edge research and profound insights that are quietly shaping the future of space civilization. We'll explore how we select the right minds for the journey, how we design habitats not just for safety but for sanity, and how we build a society from scratch that can withstand the immense psychological pressures of an alien world. This is about more than survival. It's about designing a civilization where people can truly thrive, find meaning, and build a new home for humanity. The journey begins by understanding the unique crucible of the Martian environment itself. Now, let's break down exactly what makes this environment so uniquely taxing on the human psyche. The first and most profound challenge is the sheer, absolute isolation. This isn't the solitude of a quiet cabin in the woods where you know a town is just a short drive away. This is being utterly separated from every other living soul except for the handful of people in your habitat, with the next nearest humans remaining back on Earth. The distance creates a communication delay of up to 20 minutes each way, making a simple conversation with loved ones an exercise in patience and frustration, completely stripping away the comforting spontaneity of human connection. You can't call home for a quick chat when you're feeling down. Every interaction becomes a scheduled, formal event. This level of separation from the rest of humanity, a phenomenon psychologists call Earth out of view, has never been experienced before, and its full impact is something we can only begin to model. Compounding this isolation is the extreme confinement. Think about the most cramped space you've ever been in, and then imagine living there for years with no possibility of leaving. The habitable areas of the colony, while carefully designed, will be fundamentally limited. Every corridor, every room, every workstation is part of a closed-loop system that you cannot escape. There is no stepping outside for a breath of fresh air, no feeling of sun or wind on your skin without the artificial barrier of a suit. This relentless containment fosters a deep sense of claustrophobia and a loss of personal autonomy. Your entire world is manufactured, recycled, and monitored. The constant hum of machines that keep you alive becomes a reminder of your own fragility and dependence. This isn't just cabin fever, it's a perpetual state of being a guest in a mechanical womb that you cannot leave. Then there is the alien and monotonous landscape itself. On Earth, our brains are subconsciously soothed and stimulated by a vibrant palette of colors: the deep green of forests, the brilliant blue of water, the endless variety of a changing sky. Mars offers none of that. The exterior view is a perpetual, static panorama of rust-colored dust, gray rock, and a pale pink sky. This sensory deprivation can lead to a phenomenon known as Martian fatigue, a kind of mental stagnation and lethargy born from a lack of novel visual and auditory input. Furthermore, the Martian day, or sol, is about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. This seemingly small difference can wreak havoc on the human circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that regulates sleep, mood, and alertness. Without the strong daily cues of a 24-hour light-dark cycle, colonists could face chronic sleep disorders, which are directly linked to irritability, depression, and impaired cognitive function. Looming over all of these factors is the ever-present, low-grade hum of danger. On Earth, we enjoy a largely benevolent environment. On Mars, the environment is actively hostile. The thin atmosphere offers no protection from solar and cosmic radiation, which means even inside the habitat, colonists will be aware of a higher radiation risk. Every system failure, from a minor air scrubber alert to a major hull breach, carries immediate and potentially fatal consequences. There are no emergency services to call, no possibility of a rapid evacuation. This knowledge creates a background level of existential dread, a constant, low-grade stress that requires immense psychological resilience to manage without succumbing to anxiety or paralysis. Researchers study these pressures in analog environments on Earth, like the isolation of Antarctic research stations during the long winter or the confinement of submarines on extended patrols. But Mars combines all these stresses at once and turns them up to an unprecedented maximum. Understanding this psychological crucible is the essential foundation for every decision that follows, starting with the most critical one: choosing the right people to put inside it. So how do we find the rare individuals who can not only survive but actually flourish under such extraordinary duress? The selection process for these first Martian colonists is unlike any job interview or astronaut application we've ever seen. It goes far beyond checking boxes for advanced degrees or physical fitness. This is a deep, multi-layered psychological excavation. The central question isn't just "what do you know?" or "how healthy are you?" but rather, who are you at your core when everything is stripped away? Psychologists are designing incredibly sophisticated psychometric profiles to answer that very question, creating a battery of tests that probe the deepest recesses of a candidate's personality. The ideal Martian pioneer isn't necessarily the most brilliant scientist or the most physically robust engineer, though those skills are certainly valued. The paramount qualities are psychological. Top of the list is resilience, that almost supernatural ability to bounce back from setbacks, to face a catastrophic crop failure or a critical system malfunction, and see it not as a reason to despair, but as a problem to be solved with calm determination. Right alongside it is adaptability. The mission plan will change constantly. The environment will throw endless curveballs. The people who succeed will be those who can pivot their thinking, abandon a cherished hypothesis, or completely change their daily routine at a moment's notice without becoming frustrated or rigid. Perhaps most importantly, they must possess a deep well of empathy and social intelligence. In a group sealed together for years, a single individual who cannot read a room, who dismisses the feelings of others, or who constantly creates interpersonal friction can become a catalyst for group breakdown. That's why tendencies toward aggression, narcissism, or extreme rigidity are immediate red flags. Instead, the selectors are looking for what they call team players with a high degree of emotional stability. This isn't about being an extroverted social butterfly. It's about having the quiet confidence and self-awareness to manage your own emotions and the perceptiveness to support those. Your crewmates, but selecting the right individuals is only half the battle. The other, equally critical half is assembling them into the right team. You could have 6 perfect, resilient, adaptable individuals, but if they all have the same strengths and the same weaknesses, the group will be brittle. The goal is to create a cohesive unit with complementary strengths. You need the meticulous, rule-oriented planner who ensures every safety protocol is followed, but you also need the creative, out-of-the-box thinker who can MacGyver a solution when those protocols fail. You need the optimistic motivator who keeps spirits high, balanced by the pragmatic realist who keeps expectations grounded. It's a delicate human chemistry experiment, aiming for a reaction that produces synergy and support, not conflict and corrosion. To see these dynamics in action, candidates aren't just interviewed, they are immersed. They spend weeks or even months in high-fidelity simulations here on Earth, in isolated habitats in the Utah desert, submerged in underwater laboratories, or in remote Arctic stations. These aren't simple camping trips, they are meticulously observed experiments. Researchers monitor how candidates handle the mind-numbing boredom of routine maintenance tasks, how they react under the simulated stress of a sudden emergency alarm in the middle of the night, and most tellingly, how they navigate the inevitable interpersonal friction that arises when people are tired, stressed, and living on top of one another. Who steps up to mediate a disagreement? Who withdraws and becomes silent? Who cracks a joke to break the tension? These simulations provide a priceless window into real-world behavior that no written test can ever fully reveal. This intense psychological vetting process is the absolute bedrock of the entire mission. All the advanced technology, all the perfectly designed habitats, all the carefully planned routines, they can all be undermined by a single incompatible personality or a fractured team dynamic. Getting the human element right is the first and most important step in building not just a functional outpost, but a sustainable, supportive community. It's about ensuring that when the inevitable challenges arise, the colony has the collective emotional strength to face them together. And once we have the right people, the next step is to build them a world that actively nurtures that hard-won psychological stability, starting with the very walls that will surround them. Once we have the right minds for the journey, the next critical layer of the emotional blueprint is the world we build to contain them. The habitat on Mars is far more than a life-supporting machine. It is a psychological life raft. Every single design decision, from the curvature of a wall to the color of the light, is made with mental well-being as the primary objective. This is architecture as therapy, a deliberate countermeasure against the environmental stressors we just explored. The goal is to create an environment that doesn't just keep colonists alive, but one that actively helps them thrive, fostering a profound sense of safety, belonging, and comfort in a world that is inherently hostile and alien. A central principle guiding this design is biophilia, the innate human tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. On a planet devoid of greenery, this connection must be intentionally manufactured. Imagine walking through the colony's central corridor, not under the harsh glare of industrial LEDs, but under a dynamic lighting system that subtly cycles through the colors of an earthly day. It begins with a soft, warm glow that mimics sunrise, gradually brightening to a cool, blue-white noon, and then slowly fading through the oranges and deep blues of dusk, helping to regulate circadian rhythms naturally. Throughout the habitat, you'll find hydroponic gardens and green walls bursting with leafy greens, fragrant herbs, and even flowering plants. These aren't just food sources, they are vital psychological anchors. The act of tending to plants, of smelling soil and seeing life grow, provides a tangible connection to Earth and a powerful antidote to the sterile, metallic surroundings. The colors chosen for walls and fabrics are not the grays and beiges of a spacecraft, but the greens, blues, and browns of forests, oceans, and Earth, creating a visual palette that subconsciously soothes the mind. The architecture also makes a profound statement about the value of the individual versus the group. While collectivism is essential for survival, a complete lack of privacy is a recipe for conflict and emotional exhaustion. That's why private quarters, though compact, are treated as sacred personal sanctuaries. Each person has a small, sound-dampened room they can retreat to, a space they have full control over. Here, they can personalize the lighting, display photos of loved ones on digital frames, listen to music, or simply enjoy the profound luxury of being truly alone. This isn't antisocial, it's a necessary pressure valve. Having a space for solitude and reflection allows colonists to process their emotions privately and return to the group recharged and more present. Conversely, the communal areas are designed to be irresistibly inviting, engineered to pull people together and encourage the spontaneous interactions that build strong social bonds. The galley or dining area isn't just a place to consume nutrients. It features large communal tables that encourage shared meals, comfortable seating arranged to facilitate conversation, and a layout that makes it easy for someone to linger over a coffee and chat. Workspaces are designed for visibility and collaboration, with writable walls and flexible furniture that can be rearranged for group projects. There might even be a dedicated common room with softer lighting, games, and a large screen for movie nights or watching broadcasts from Earth, consciously creating a space that feels like a living room, not a laboratory. The acoustic design here is also crucial. Rather than the echoing, harsh acoustics of a metal tube, these spaces use sound-absorbing panels and materials to create a warmer, softer soundscape that feels intimate and comfortable, reducing the auditory stress of constant machine noise. Flexibility is another key psychological tool. Being trapped in a rigid, unchanging environment can lead to a sense of helplessness and monotony. To combat this, the habitat incorporates multi-purpose, reconfigurable spaces. A workshop area might clear its floor in the evening to become a yoga studio or a gym. Movable partitions can transform an open-plan area into smaller, quieter nooks for focused work or private conversations. This ability for the colonists to actively shape and change their own environment is incredibly empowering. It restores a sense of agency and control, countering the feeling of being a passive passenger in a machine. Even the windows play a dual role. While real windows are a structural vulnerability, high-resolution screens can display live feeds from the outside, offering breathtaking views of the Martian landscape or, with a tap, a serene beach scene from Earth. This isn't about deception, it's about providing a choice of vista, a mental escape hatch that can alleviate feelings of claustrophobia or homesickness. Every other sensory detail is also meticulously considered. The airflow system is designed to avoid constant, annoying drafts while ensuring air never feels stale. The temperature is kept within a comfortable range, with perhaps even localized controls so someone feeling chilly can warm up their immediate workspace. The texture of fabrics, the ergonomics of chairs, The placement of handholds all are optimized to reduce minor, cumulative irritations that can grate on nerves over time. This holistic approach to habitat design demonstrates a deep understanding that psychological well-being is built on a foundation of 1,000 tiny comforts. It's about creating an environment that feels less like a fortress and more like a home, a place that supports the complex social and emotional needs of its inhabitants as conscientiously as it provides them with oxygen. This carefully crafted physical world provides the stage, but it is the daily rhythm of life upon that stage that truly shapes the colony's emotional health. But a beautifully designed habitat is just a shell. It's the daily rhythm of life within it that truly breathes psychological stability into the colony. On Mars, the familiar anchors of time simply don't exist. There's no sun rising over a horizon to mark a new day, no weekend buzz from a nearby town, no natural cues to tell your body and mind when to work, when to rest, and when to connect with others. In this timeless void, a rigid, thoughtfully structured routine becomes far more than a simple schedule. It transforms into the very heartbeat of the community, a non-negotiable framework for sanity. Without the external pulse of a 24-hour planetary cycle, the internal human clock can easily drift into a state of chaos, leading to sleep disorders, mood swings, and a pervasive sense of disorientation. The solution is to artificially create what the environment cannot provide, a reliable, repeating cadence that everyone can synchronize with. This begins with the fundamental architecture of the Martian soul. Despite the day being roughly 40 minutes longer, the colony operates on a standardized 24-hour clock to maintain a crucial psychological tether to Earth. Waking up isn't a chaotic free-for-all. It's a carefully choreographed event designed to gently pull everyone into the day together. Imagine a habitat where the overhead lighting system doesn't just snap on. Instead, it begins a 30-minute gradual sunrise simulation, flooding the living quarters with a soft, warm amber glow that slowly intensifies and cools to a bright, alertness-promoting blue-white. This artificial dawn is often accompanied by a gentle, non-intrusive ambient soundscape, perhaps the soft chirping of birds or the sound of distant ocean waves, further reinforcing the connection to a waking world. Many colonists might start their day with a short, guided group meditation session broadcast over the comms, or a few minutes of light therapy in front of a dedicated lamp, ensuring their circadian rhythms receive the strongest possible reset signal. This shared morning ritual does more than just wake people up. It creates a collective starting point, a moment of quiet preparation that everyone experiences in unison, reinforcing their identity as a crew facing the day together. The structure of the workday itself is meticulously planned to combat two of the biggest psychological threats, monotony and burnout. Work assignments are deliberately rotated. A botanist who spent yesterday tending to the hydroponic gardens might be scheduled today to assist the geologist with analyzing rock samples, while that geologist might have a shift helping to troubleshoot a software issue in the communications array. This cross-training is brilliant on a practical level. It creates a more resilient and versatile crew, but its primary benefit is psychological. It shatters the soul-crushing repetition that can lead to disengagement and apathy, constantly presenting new challenges and learning opportunities that keep the mind sharp and curious. Every task, no matter how mundane, is explicitly tied to a larger goal. Cleaning a filter isn't just a chore, it's a vital contribution to the life support system's efficiency, and that contribution is acknowledged. Clear, achievable milestones are set and celebrated: the first successful harvest of a new potato variety, the completion of a geological survey map, the 1000th sol without a major incident. These markers provide a powerful sense of forward momentum and accomplishment, answering the silent but persistent question of, why am I doing this? With a resounding, because we are building something incredible. Just as important as the work are the intentional, non-negotiable breaks woven throughout the sol. There are designated mid-morning and afternoon pauses where work essentially stops. This isn't a suggestion, it's a colony-wide protocol. During these times, you might find colonists using the gym, which is equipped with resistance machines tailored for Martian gravity, or perhaps floating in a sensory deprivation tank to alleviate the physical pressures of the day. Others might retreat to their quarters to read, watch a show from Earth, or simply stare at a virtual window displaying a live feed of the stars. This enforced downtime is a critical defense against the pioneer mentality of constant work, a trap that leads straight to exhaustion and error. The day then culminates in the evening wind down, which is heavily focused on social bonding. The evening meal is treated as a sacred event. It's not a grab-and-go affair. It's a time when the entire crew is expected to gather, share food they've grown themselves, and actually talk. They might debrief the day's events, share stories from home, or even engage in a heated but friendly debate. After dinner, the routine might include group activities, a movie night in the common room, a competitive board game tournament, or a collaborative music jam session. These aren't frivolous extras, they are the essential glue that mends the minor fractures of the day and strengthens the social connections that are the colony's ultimate safety net. Even moments of potential high stress are incorporated into the rhythm through regular, scheduled emergency drills. A sudden alarm blaring in the middle of a quiet shift could be terrifying, but when drills are a normal, expected part of the monthly calendar, they transform from panic-inducing events into practiced procedures. This repetition builds muscle memory and confidence, replacing fear with a sense of competence and control. Knowing that you and your crewmates have successfully run through a habitat breach scenario a dozen times creates a profound psychological resilience. The entire daily structure, from the artificial sunrise to the shared meal, acts as a powerful emotional anchor. In a world where the external environment is fundamentally unpredictable and hostile, this internal predictability provides a deep, subconscious comfort. It tells every colonist that no matter what happens outside, inside these walls, there is order, there is purpose, and there is a time for everything. This framework of routine is the steady drumbeat that allows the colony to march forward in unison. But even the most perfect rhythm needs a conductor to keep time and guide the orchestra through the unexpected. Yet even the most perfectly designed routine cannot run itself. It requires a guiding hand, a steady presence to maintain its rhythm and adapt it when unforeseen challenges arise. This is where leadership steps in, and on Mars, the role of a commander is redefined entirely. This isn't about giving orders from a position of detached authority. It's about being the emotional anchor for an entire community living on the edge of human experience. The immense psychological pressures of isolation demand a leader who embodies a unique and delicate balance, someone who can project unwavering confidence during a crisis, while also possessing the deep empathy to notice when a crewmate is quietly struggling after a difficult message from home. They must be the rock and the refuge, the decision maker and the listener all at once. Research drawn from extreme environments on Earth, from Antarctic winter over stations to long-duration submarine missions, consistently points away from the classic top-down authoritarian model. A leader who rules by decree, who silences dissent, or who hoards information would quickly fracture the fragile social ecosystem of the habitat. Instead, the most effective style for long-term isolation is what psychologists call transformational leadership. This approach is less about wielding power and more about unlocking the potential within the entire team. A transformational leader is a facilitator, not a dictator. Their primary tools are inspiration, collaboration, and transparent communication. They frame the mission's challenges as shared problems to be solved together, fostering a profound sense of collective ownership and purpose. They don't just tell the crew what to do, they explain the why behind every decision, creating an environment of trust where everyone understands their role in the larger picture. This transparency is absolutely critical. In a place where rumors or misinformation can spiral into paranoia, a leader who openly shares both successes and setbacks, who admits what they don't know, and who outlines the plan for finding answers builds a bedrock of psychological safety. The crew knows they are being treated as capable partners, not just subordinates, which empowers them to contribute ideas and voice concerns without fear. This leadership style is backed by extensive, rigorous training long before ever leaving Earth. Prospective commanders undergo intense simulations designed less to test their technical knowledge and more to evaluate their emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. They are drilled in advanced conflict resolution techniques, learning how to de-escalate tensions between crew members before they erupt into open hostility. They practice active listening, the art of truly hearing not just the words someone says, but the emotions and fears underlying them. A commander must be the colony's chief noticer, attuned to the most subtle shifts in behavior. Is the usually cheerful botanist suddenly skipping communal meals? Is the meticulous engineer starting to make uncharacteristically sloppy mistakes? These are not just personal issues. They are early warning signs of a system under stress, and the leader is trained to intervene with supportive, non-judgmental conversations long before a small problem becomes a mission-threatening crisis. Perhaps most importantly, commanders are taught to model the resilience and optimism they wish to see in their crew. They are the emotional thermostat for the entire habitat. If they respond to a crop failure with calm, analytical problem solving, the crew will mirror that response. If they project a sense of hope and purpose even after a grueling sol, that energy becomes contagious. Their attitude literally sets the psychological weather for the entire colony. To further prevent the stagnation and resentment that can come from a single, permanent authority figure, many mission architectures incorporate the concept of rotating or shared leadership. For specific projects or on a scheduled basis, different crew members might be asked to step into a leadership role. The geologist might lead a complex extravehicular activity survey, while the doctor takes charge of organizing the community's health and wellness schedule for the month. This approach serves multiple psychological purposes. It distributes the immense weight of responsibility, preventing commander burnout. It allows every member of the crew to feel a sense of agency and investment in the colony's success, reinforcing that they are all vital leaders in their own right. It also prevents the dangerous dynamic of us versus them that can develop between a static leadership and the rest of the crew, ensuring that decision-making power is seen as a fluid function rather than a fixed hierarchy. This creates a more adaptable and resilient group where leadership is a shared skill, not a solitary title. The ultimate goal of this reimagined command structure is to cultivate an environment where challenges are not met with blame and top-down orders, but are transformed into opportunities for collective growth and learning. A system's failure becomes a chance to showcase the team's ingenuity. An interpersonal disagreement becomes a moment to practice empathy and strengthen communication protocols. Through trusted, empathetic leadership, the colony's cohesion isn't just maintained. It is actively strengthened, forging bonds of mutual respect that are essential for navigating the complex interpersonal dynamics inherent to a closed, isolated society. Even the most cohesive crew, guided by the most empathetic leader, will inevitably face moments of friction. You simply cannot place a handful of people in a pressurized can for years on end and expect complete harmony. The psychological pressures, the close quarters, the high-stakes work, it all creates a petri dish for interpersonal conflict. The goal, therefore, is not to eliminate arguments or disagreements, which would be both unnatural and unhealthy, but to engineer a social environment where conflict becomes constructive rather than corrosive. It becomes a tool for growth, a way to air different perspectives and find stronger solutions rather than a force that tears the community apart. This requires moving beyond hope and into the realm of deliberate, practiced social technology. The foundation of all of this is proactive trust building. Trust isn't a vague feeling that just appears. It's a tangible resource that must be consciously deposited into the community bank day after day. This happens through meticulously designed shared experiences. Imagine a scenario where the entire crew, from the commander to the botanist, must work together to assemble a complex new piece of farming equipment that arrived in a recent supply drop. There are no assigned roles based on rank. Everyone is on the floor, puzzling over the instructions, handing each other tools, and celebrating together when the first green shoot appears from its output. This isn't just about getting a job done. It's an engineered exercise in vulnerability and mutual dependence. Each person witnesses the competence, patience, and humor of the others under a mild stressor, building a reservoir of respect that can be drawn upon later during a real crisis. Celebrations are similarly weaponized for social good. The first harvest, the anniversary of the landing, even a crew member's birthday, these aren't just casual parties. They are mandatory rituals of appreciation, taking a moment to publicly acknowledge someone's contribution to a recent success, or sharing a funny story about a mistake that was later laughed about, reinforces positive bonds and reminds everyone that they are valued not just for their function, but for who they are. But when conflict does arise, as it absolutely will, the colony is armed with a shared language for navigating it. Every colonist is extensively trained in techniques like non-violent communication, or NVC. This moves arguments away from blame and accusation and toward expressing personal needs. Instead of saying, "You never refill the water dispenser, you're so inconsiderate," a colonist is trained to frame it as, "When I go to get water and the dispenser is empty, I feel frustrated because I have a need for reliability in our shared spaces. Would you be willing to make a note to check it after you use it?" This formula, observation, feeling, need, request, de-escalates situations instantly. It prevents the other person from becoming defensive and shifts the focus to a collaborative problem-solving mode. It turns a personal criticism into a shared logistical issue to be solved together. This is supported by formal, structured processes for mediation. If two crew members find themselves at an impasse, they don't let it simmer. They can request a facilitated dialogue. This isn't a trial with a judge and a verdict. It's a guided conversation led by another crew member trained in mediation, often rotating this responsibility to share the skill. The mediator's job is not to take sides, but to ensure each person feels heard and to help them uncover the underlying interests behind their positions. Perhaps an argument about music volume in the lab isn't really about noise. It's about one person's need for focus and another's need for creative stimulation. The solution isn't a simple, quiet time rule, but perhaps the creation of designated focus zones and collaborative zones, satisfying the deeper need for both concentration and connection. To catch these issues before they ever need formal mediation, the colony operates on a principle of radical transparency through regular check-ins. This might be a brief, 15-minute all-hands meeting each morning where, alongside the work schedule, people can voice minor irritations or concerns in a safe space. "I'm feeling a bit stretched thin with the extra data analysis tasks," someone might say, or "I noticed the airlock protocol was skipped yesterday and it made me anxious." This normalizes the act of expressing vulnerability and concern. It prevents small annoyances from festering in silence for weeks until they explode into a major confrontation. It makes the emotional state of the crew a part of the daily operational briefing, giving it equal weight with the technical systems. Furthermore, diversity in personality and culture isn't just tolerated, it's actively mined for strength. The crew isn't composed of 6 identical, perfectly agreeable robots. You have your introverts who recharge alone and your extroverts who draw energy from the group. You have people from direct communication cultures and those from more indirect ones. Rather than forcing everyone to conform to a single standard of interaction, these differences are explored and appreciated. A crew meeting might start with a simple go-around. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much social energy do you have today? This allows the extroverts to understand that the introvert's quietness isn't rudeness but replenishment, and it allows the introverts to prepare for the extrovert's need for lively discussion. Cultural sharing becomes a scheduled activity, cooking a traditional dish from someone's home country, celebrating a holiday another grew up with. This doesn't just build cultural literacy, it builds a brand new hybrid Martian culture, one that is unique to that specific group of people and becomes a powerful source of shared identity, transcending the earthly differences they arrived with. Through this careful, multi-layered approach, the social fabric of the colony becomes its most resilient material, woven not from luck but from design. Building this profound emotional resilience begins long before the rocket ever leaves the launch pad, with a training regimen that is as rigorous for the mind as physical conditioning is for the body. Future colonists aren't just taught what to do in an emergency. They are systematically put through the emotional wringer in hyper-realistic simulations designed to break down their psychological defenses in a controlled environment, only to help them build stronger ones back up. These aren't simple role-playing exercises. They are full immersion experiences that last for weeks or even months, replicating the exact conditions of a Martian habitat here on Earth. The life support systems in these analog environments are programmed to fail in terrifyingly plausible ways. A sudden, blaring alarm might signal a rapid drop in cabin pressure, forcing the crew to scramble into their suits while managing the sheer, heart-pounding panic that comes with it. A simulated communication blackout might cut them off from mission control for days, forcing them to sit with the eerie silence and the sobering realization that they are truly on their own. The training staff even introduces manufactured interpersonal conflicts, perhaps secretly instructing one crew member to be deliberately obstructive during a critical task, just to see how the group handles the friction and works through the frustration. The goal is never to see them fail, but to allow them to experience catastrophic failure in a safe space. They learn that the feeling of sheer terror does not have to lead to paralysis. They practice the art of taking a single, deep breath amidst the chaos, silencing their own panic, and moving their hands to execute the procedures they've memorized 1,000 times. This repeated exposure to high-stress scenarios does something remarkable. It raises their emotional threshold. What would have once caused a meltdown becomes a manageable problem. They build a deep, earned confidence that comes not from lectures, but from the visceral memory of having stared down a simulated disaster and prevailed together. This foundational training is then reinforced with a practical mental toolkit drawn from the most effective Earth-based therapeutic practices. Colonists become proficient in techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy, learning to identify and dismantle the negative thought patterns that can spiral in isolation. They practice catching a thought like, "I'll never figure out this software bug, I'm useless to the mission," and actively reframing it to, "This is a challenging problem, but I have the skills to work through it methodically, and I can ask my crewmate for a fresh perspective." It's a form of mental hygiene, a daily practice of brushing away the cognitive distortions that accumulate under pressure. This is paired with mindfulness and meditation training, not as a vague spiritual concept, but as a concrete operational skill. They learn to use focused breathing exercises to lower their heart rate before a delicate extravehicular activity, or to employ a brief body scan meditation to release physical tension after a long shift. This ability to anchor themselves in the present moment becomes a powerful weapon against anxiety about the future or homesickness for the past. Furthermore, they are schooled in the principles of positive psychology, which focuses on building what's strong, not just fixing what's wrong. They keep digital gratitude journals, sharing moments of appreciation for a crewmate's help or the simple pleasure of a successful meal grown in their own lab. They learn to savor small wins and celebrate micro milestones, consciously cultivating optimism as a daily habit. This shifts their baseline mindset from one of surviving adversity to one of actively thriving within it, finding sparks of joy and meaning even on the most difficult souls. This mental fortitude is also built through the body and the spirit. A strict and non-negotiable regimen of physical exercise is prescribed, not just for muscle atrophy, but for its proven, powerful antidepressant effects. The colony's gym is a critical piece of psychological infrastructure. The rhythmic pounding on a treadmill or the strain against resistance machines releases endorphins, burns off stress hormones like cortisol, and provides a much-needed physical outlet for frustration and anxiety. But resilience training extends far beyond the gym. Every colonist is strongly encouraged to cultivate at least one creative hobby or deeply engaging pastime. This could be anything from learning to play a digital keyboard to coding a personal project, to writing elaborate fiction, to mastering 3D modeling. These activities provide a crucial state of flow, a complete absorption in a challenging but rewarding task that makes time disappear and silences the nagging worries of the mind. They offer an emotional release valve and, just as importantly, a profound sense of accomplishment that is entirely separate from their official work duties. Finishing a chapter of a novel or composing a piece of music provides a personal victory, a reminder of their identity and agency beyond their role as a colonist. Perhaps the most advanced aspect of this training is the development of deep emotional literacy, both internally and externally. Colonists engage in exercises designed to map their own emotional triggers with the precision of an astronomer charting a star field. They learn to recognize the specific physical sensations that signal their anger is rising, or the particular thought patterns that lead them into sadness, allowing them to intervene before the emotion takes full control. But they also learn to read these signals in their crewmates. They practice noticing the slight tightening around a colleague's eyes that suggests stress, or the uncharacteristic silence that might indicate someone is wrestling with a problem. This creates a culture of radical support where mental health is not a private struggle but a shared responsibility. A colonist might gently say, "You seem quieter than usual today. Is everything okay?" And it's received as a gesture of care, not an intrusion. This shared vocabulary and awareness transforms the habitat from a mere workplace into a true community, where everyone is equipped not only to manage their own psychological marathon, but to run alongside each other, offering a word of encouragement or a helping hand when the emotional terrain gets rough. This internal fortitude, however, is continuously nourished by a lifeline stretching back across the void, a connection to the world they left behind. Yet even with the strongest internal bonds, a profound connection to Earth remains an irreplaceable psychological lifeline, a tether to the blue world that will always be home. This bridge across the void is not a luxury. It is a critical piece of the colony's life support system for the human spirit. The technology enabling this link is nothing short of miraculous, allowing for high-definition video calls that make a loved one's smile feel almost within reach and granting instant access to the endless stream of Earth's news, sports, music, and viral videos. A colonist can watch their niece's ballet recital, listen to a new album from their favorite band on the very day it drops, or scroll through a digital book club's latest discussion, creating a powerful and comforting sense of continuity. It's the feeling that life back home is still moving forward, and they are still a part of it, not forgotten relics on a distant rock. This constant feed of familiar culture and information acts as a buffer against the disorienting strangeness of Martian life, grounding the colonists in the shared narrative of humanity. However, the laws of physics impose a cruel and unavoidable constraint on this connection: the communication delay. A simple question shouted out to a friend on Earth, like, "Did you see the game last night?" would take 20 minutes to arrive and the answer another 20 minutes to return. This 40-minute lag for a 2-second exchange completely shatters the natural rhythm of conversation, turning what should be a comforting chat into a frustrating, stilted exercise in patience. To adapt, the colonists and their families on Earth become masters of a new form of communication: asynchronous messaging. Instead of live calls, they exchange long-form video diaries. A colonist might record a 10-minute recap of their day, showing off the progress in the greenhouse or sharing a funny story about a mishap during a rover repair. They send it off into the void, and a day later, they receive a similar video from their family, a digital care package filled with updates, gossip, and reassurance. This shift from conversation to correspondence requires a mental adjustment, but it fosters a deeper, more reflective style of sharing. To simulate a sense of shared time, they institute rituals like Family Day. Every Sunday, a colonist and their family on Earth might agree to watch the same movie at the same time, knowing the other is doing the same, and then exchange their thoughts about it later. They might cook the same meal from a shared recipe, creating a simultaneous experience that transcends the delay, a virtual dinner date across 40 million miles. For moments when a video screen isn't enough, the colony employs an even more powerful tool for emotional transport: immersive virtual reality. Imagine a colonist, after a long and taxing sol, retreating to a private pod, donning a VR headset, and being instantly, breathtakingly transported. The sterile hum of the habitat vanishes, replaced by the crash of waves on a tropical beach. They can feel the warm glow of a simulated sun on their skin, hear the cry of seagulls, and watch the ripple of water as they virtually walk along the shore. Another might choose to hike through a redwood forest, smelling the damp earth and looking up at the towering canopy, or sit in a virtual replica of their favorite cafe in Paris. These are not mere distractions, they are essential sensory resets. They combat the monotony of the Martian landscape by flooding the brain with the complex, chaotic, and beautiful stimuli it evolved to crave. This controlled escapism provides a mental vacation, a way to press pause on the pressures of pioneer life and return to the hab refreshed and recentered. Beyond personal connections, this link to Earth also reinforces the colonists' sense of purpose on a grand scale. They are not just exiles, they are humanity's ambassadors, the vanguard of our species. They participate in live, albeit delayed, educational queue and sessions with classrooms across Earth, seeing the awe on children's faces as they explain what it's like to walk on another planet. They contribute data to Earth-based research projects, collaborating with scientists in real time to analyze their findings. This ongoing dialogue reminds them that their struggle and their triumphs are being watched, celebrated, and learned from by billions. It frames their daily work not as an isolated chore, but as a chapter in a much larger human story, a powerful antidote to feelings of insignificance or isolation. This Earth connection, in all its forms, is the delicate balance between remembering where you came from and building a new home. It provides the emotional sustenance needed to thrive, while the colonists themselves begin the slow, deliberate work of weaving a new culture from the threads they brought with them. This new society won't simply be a carbon copy of life back on Earth. It will be something entirely new, a cultural genesis born from the unique pressures and possibilities of the Red Planet. The colonists will arrive with the cultural baggage of Earth, their languages, their national traditions, their personal beliefs, but Martian life will act like a crucible, melting these down and forging them into something novel. Psychologists and sociologists aren't just observing this process, they are active participants, carefully considering how to nurture a culture that embodies a set of crucial balances. They aim to foster an environment that prizes bold innovation and experimentation, because survival will depend on it, while also providing enough stability and routine to make daily life feel safe and predictable. They want to celebrate individual achievement and personal autonomy, as these are powerful motivators, while simultaneously reinforcing the unshakable collectivism that is the literal bedrock of survival, where the needs of the many must often outweigh the wants of the one. And they seek to encourage the spirit of adventure that drove humanity to Mars in the first place, while embedding a deep, non-negotiable reverence for safety protocols and meticulous procedure. Getting this cultural alchemy right is perhaps the most complex social experiment ever undertaken. This new culture will express itself through rituals, but these won't be the holidays we know. The milestones of Martian life will become the anchors of the new calendar. The annual solstice will be a major event, marking a full trip around the sun in this new home, likely celebrated with a festival of light to counter the perpetual dimness of the Martian sky. Landing Day, the anniversary of their arrival, will be a somber and triumphant remembrance, a time to honor those who took the first steps and to reflect on the journey ahead. The success of the first full harvest from the hydroponic farms will undoubtedly become a feast day, a Thanksgiving in the stars, where the entire colony shares a meal made from food they grew themselves, reinforcing their interdependence and self-sufficiency. These rituals aren't just parties, they are the foundational stories of a new people. They create a shared history, a collective memory that binds the group together and gives everyone a powerful sense of purpose and place in a grand narrative. Artistic expression will be the lifeblood of this cultural evolution, serving as a vital outlet for processing the profound emotional experience of living on Mars. The stark, magnificent desolation of the landscape will inspire new forms of visual art, perhaps using Martian regolith as a pigment to create paintings in shades of rust and ochre never before seen on Earth. Music will evolve, composed on digital interfaces but perhaps incorporating the natural sounds of the habitat, the hum of generators, the hiss of air circulators into symphonies that sound utterly alien yet deeply human. But the most powerful art form may be the oldest, storytelling. Around the communal dinner table, colonists will share their experiences, their fears, and their hopes. They will craft narratives about their journey, turning technical malfunctions into legendary tales of ingenuity and near disasters into epic sagas of heroism. This storytelling isn't just entertainment, it is how they will make sense of their new reality, building a collective identity and teaching these values to the children who will be the first true Martians. A shared narrative transforms a group of individuals into a civilization. The very structure of their governance will reflect this unique environment. While democratic principles like voting and representation will be important for ensuring everyone has a voice, the constant threat of emergency requires a system that can switch to a more directive, adaptive leadership model in a crisis. Imagine a standard governance council that handles day-to-day decisions through debate and consensus, but with a pre-established protocol that immediately grants ultimate authority to a designated crisis manager during an emergency like a habitat breach or a dust storm. Once the immediate threat passes, power would seamlessly revert to the Democratic Council. This hybrid model ensures that the colony remains responsive and agile enough to handle life or death situations without devolving into a permanent autocracy. It's a practical acknowledgement that on Mars, the luxury of lengthy debate is sometimes a risk they cannot afford, and trust in expert leadership is a necessary component of survival. This entire cultural framework, from its rituals to its government, is being consciously designed. It's not being left to chance. Every element is chosen with two primary goals: to support the psychological well-being of the colonists and to ensure the long-term sustainability of the colony itself. A culture that celebrates patience and meticulousness will produce fewer accidents. A culture that values open communication and emotional support will maintain stronger group cohesion. A culture that finds beauty and meaning in its harsh environment will foster a deeper connection to its new home. This conscious engineering of society is unprecedented, a deliberate effort to create a culture that is both mentally healthy and inherently resilient. And to ensure this carefully nurtured culture remains healthy, it will be supported by a sophisticated, always-on layer of technology designed to monitor the very emotional state of the community. This constant, invisible layer of support represents one of the most sophisticated applications of technology in the entire colony, a proactive mental health safety net woven from data and algorithms. On Earth, we often only seek psychological help when we're already in crisis, but on Mars, that reactive model is a luxury they cannot afford. A single colonist's unchecked depression or rising paranoia could ripple through the entire small community with devastating consequences. Therefore, the entire philosophy shifts from treatment to preemption, from fixing problems to preventing them from ever taking root. The habitat itself becomes an empathetic entity, quietly attentive to the emotional well-being of its inhabitants through a network of discrete sensors and intelligent software. Each colonist wears a sleek, comfortable biometric band that functions as far more than a simple fitness tracker. It continuously monitors a suite of physiological data that serves as a window into their subconscious stress levels. It tracks heart rate variability, a key indicator of the nervous system's balance between stress and relaxation. It analyzes sleep architecture, not just duration, looking for the disruptive patterns of REM sleep that signal anxiety or depression. It even measures subtle changes in electrodermal activity, a telltale sign of sweating palms and rising stress that the individual themselves might not even be aware of yet. This physiological data creates a baseline for each person, a unique signature of their healthy, stable state, but the monitoring extends far beyond what's on the wrist. The colony's artificial intelligence is constantly listening, not to the words being spoken, but to the music behind them. Advanced speech pattern analysis software embedded in the comms system evaluates hundreds of parameters in a person's voice in real time. It notes a slight increase in vocal pitch that might indicate anxiety, a slowing of speech rate that could suggest fatigue or sadness, or a tightening of vocal tones that often accompanies irritation or anger. This isn't about eavesdropping on private conversations. The AI is blind to the content, focusing solely on the acoustic metadata. It's looking for deviations from an individual's normal speech patterns, those subtle tells that something is emotionally off. Furthermore, the system passively monitors social dynamics. It tracks the ebb and flow of interactions, how much time a colonist is spending in communal areas versus isolating in their quarters, the frequency and length of their conversations, even the sentiment of public communications. A colonist who suddenly stops attending group meals, whose communications become terse and infrequent, and whose vocal patterns show flat affect, is sending up a constellation of digital red flags long before they might ever think to ask for help. All of this raw data, the physiological, the vocal, the social, flows into a centralized AI system that acts as the colony's emotional dashboard. This is not a system designed to punish or reprimand. Its sole purpose is to support. When the algorithm detects a concerning pattern, it doesn't sound a blaring alarm for the whole colony to hear. Instead, it initiates a gentle, personalized intervention. It might send a private, text-based notification to the individual's personal device with a supportive suggestion. Your stress biomarkers are elevated. Would you like to schedule 10 minutes of guided breathing exercises? Or, your social interaction has decreased by 40% this week. The board game group is meeting in the common room at 1900 hours tonight. These are nudges, not commands, designed to empower the colonist to take agency over their own mental state. For more persistent issues, the system can automatically schedule a check-in with the human psychologist on crew or recommend a session with an AI-driven virtual therapist. These digital counselors, available 24/7, are sophisticated programs trained in evidence-based therapeutic techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy. They provide a judgment-free space for a colonist to vent frustrations or work through negative thought patterns, offering immediate coping strategies and tools for emotional regulation. The system is also programmed to recognize crises. If it detects physiological signs of a panic attack or vocal patterns indicating severe distress, it can immediately and discreetly alert the medical team, enabling them to intervene with speed and compassion. Of course, this omnipresent observation raises profound questions about privacy and autonomy. The architects of this system have built in rigorous ethical safeguards to prevent it from becoming a tool of control or coercion. Colonists have complete transparency into what data is being collected and how it is used. They can view their own emotional dashboard at any time, giving them unprecedented self-awareness. They can opt out of certain monitoring features, though most understand it's a trade-off for their own safety. All data is anonymized and aggregated for group analysis, so leaders can see that crew morale is trending downward without knowing which individual is struggling, unless that person's metrics cross a threshold that requires help. The core principle is that the technology must serve the human, not the other way around. It is a tool for empowerment, designed to provide insights and options, not to enforce compliance. This delicate, proactive dance between human intuition and artificial intelligence creates a society that is not only physically protected, but also psychologically nurtured, fostering an environment where every individual has the support they need to not just endure their mission, but to find deep and lasting purpose within it. Yet, even with this sophisticated network of emotional support and a thriving culture, the most profound psychological resource a colonist possesses is not external, but internal. It is the deeply personal, unwavering sense of purpose that answers the most fundamental question: why endure all of this on a distant, hostile world where every single day presents a new challenge? Motivation cannot be a fleeting emotion. It must be a bedrock conviction, a core part of one's identity that is constantly reinforced and renewed. This sense of purpose operates on two interconnected levels: the grand, species-wide narrative and the intimate, personal story. The grand narrative is the one mission Control loves to talk about. Colonists are the vanguard of humanity, the literal embodiment of our deepest exploratory instincts. Their every action contributes to a monumental historical project, ensuring the long-term survival of our species by becoming a multi-planetary civilization. A botanist troubleshooting a glitch in the hydroponic nutrient sensors isn't just fixing a machine. They are safeguarding the very oxygen supply that allows this branch of humanity to breathe. An engineer welding a new support beam in a storage module isn't just performing a repair. They are literally expanding the physical footprint of human civilization beyond Earth. This framing transforms mundane, tedious, and even frustrating tasks into sacred duties. The colony's communication systems are deliberately designed to reinforce this. Regular video messages from leading scientists on Earth express genuine excitement about the data being sent back. Children's classrooms send questions and artwork inspired by the mission. The colonists are constantly shown that their work is not happening in a vacuum, that it is inspiring, educating, and advancing all of humanity. They are living symbols of hope and progress, and that symbolic weight, while heavy, is also an immense source of strength and pride. However, this grand collective purpose must be complemented by a tapestry of individual, personal meanings. A colonist cannot live on symbolism alone. They need to feel a sense of growth, achievement, and fulfillment in their own lives. This is where personal projects and passions become critical psychological infrastructure. The colony actively encourages and provides resources for colonists to pursue their own intellectual and creative curiosities. The geologist with a passion for photography might embark on a long-term project to create a stunning visual atlas of Martian geological formations, not for any official mission objective, but for the sheer beauty of it. The software engineer might spend their off hours writing a novel set in the very colony they inhabit, using fiction to process their own experience. Another colonist might dedicate themselves to mastering the art of baking the perfect loaf of bread using only Martian-grown wheat, turning a simple necessity into a craft. These personal endeavors provide a vital sense of autonomy and identity separate from one's assigned role. They are a declaration that even in the most extreme environment, a human being needs to create, to explore, and to express themselves for no other reason than the intrinsic joy it brings. Achieving a personal goal, like finally capturing a breathtaking image of a Martian moonrise or successfully performing a piece of music they composed, provides a deep, internal wellspring of satisfaction that is entirely independent of the mission's success or failure. The passage of time and the accumulation of effort are marked and sanctified through ritual and ceremony. On Earth, we have birthdays, anniversaries, and national holidays to punctuate our years. On Mars, they will invent their own. The anniversary of the landing will undoubtedly be the colony's most important holiday, a day of remembrance, celebration, and recommitment. But they will also create smaller, more frequent rituals. The first harvest of a new crop will be a feast. The completion of a major construction project will call for a ceremony where every contributor is recognized. Even the simple act of a crew member's solar return, their birthday, will be treated with immense importance, a chance for the entire community to celebrate that individual's unique presence and contributions. These rituals serve as psychological mile markers. In an environment where one soul can blur into the next, they create a clear narrative of progress. They allow the community to pause, look back at how far they've come, and collectively affirm that their struggles have meaning. The stories told at these events of the time the water recycler failed and was fixed, of the hilarious disaster of the first attempt at baking become the foundational myths of the new culture, transforming shared trauma into shared legend. To navigate the inevitable setbacks and suffering, the colony's culture may consciously integrate philosophical frameworks that provide tools for resilience. Ancient philosophies like Stoicism, which teaches the separation between what we can control and what we cannot, could become incredibly relevant. A colonist trained in Stoic principles would see a devastating dust storm that ruins a solar panel array not as a personal failure or a reason to despair, but as an external event outside their control, a problem to be addressed with calm rationality once the storm passes. Similarly, tenets of existentialism, which emphasize creating one's own meaning in a universe that may be indifferent, could empower colonists to see themselves not as passive victims of a harsh environment, but as active authors of their own destiny, forging significance through their choices and actions every single day. These aren't abstract academic concepts, they are practical mental technologies for survival, providing a sturdy intellectual framework for maintaining equanimity in the face of adversity. This multi-layered approach to purpose, weaving together the grand historical narrative, the intimate personal journey, the bonding power of ritual, and the grounding strength of philosophy, creates a psychological tapestry rich enough to sustain the human spirit not just for years, but for generations, ensuring that the flame of motivation never flickers and dies in the Martian night. This deep-seated sense of meaning becomes the essential armor that must be in place before the colony can hope to withstand the psychological shock of a true emergency. Despite the most meticulous preparations and the strongest psychological foundations, the stark reality of Mars is that emergencies are not a matter of if, but when. The environment is too hostile, the technology too complex, and the margin for error too thin to believe otherwise. A sudden, piercing alarm can shatter the routine of any sol, signaling a catastrophic habitat breach, a raging fire in the oxygen generation system, or a critical medical emergency that strains the crew's limited resources. In these moments, the psychological blueprint shifts from fostering long-term well-being to ensuring immediate survival, focusing on the intricate science of crisis psychology. The goal is not to prevent the emotional shock of such an event. That is an inevitable human response, but to ensure that every colonist has been so thoroughly trained that their body and mind can execute life-saving procedures even while their conscious brain is reeling from fear. This is where the intense, simulated trauma of their Earth-based training pays its most vital dividend. When the real alarm blares, it triggers not just panic, but also a deep-seated muscle memory. Their heart may be pounding, but their hands know how to seal a suit. Their breath may be short, but they remember the drill for isolating a compromised module. This training creates a cognitive override, allowing the rational, practiced part of the brain to take the wheel while the emotional center is temporarily sidelined, a crucial adaptation that turns raw fear into focused action. The immediate aftermath of a crisis is often more psychologically perilous than the event itself. Once the immediate threat is neutralized and the adrenaline subsides, the mind begins to process what just happened, and this is where the real risk of long-term trauma takes root. To prevent this, the colony operates on a strict, non-negotiable protocol of structured psychological first aid and mandatory debriefing. The first step is physical and emotional stabilization. Colonists are cycled through designated safe zones, quiet, softly lit rooms acoustically insulated from the main habitat's noise. These are not medical bays, but sanctuaries. Here, emergency supplies include not just medical kits, but also comfort items, weighted blankets to calm the nervous system, noise-canceling headphones, and perhaps even devices that provide gentle, rhythmic stimulation to help ground a person in their body. A crew member might be handed a warm drink and simply sit in silence for a few minutes, their vital signs monitored remotely to ensure they are calming down. This immediate decompression is critical for preventing the kind of emotional shock that can lead to dissociation or panic attacks later on. Following this stabilization, within a few hours, the entire crew engages in a facilitated psychological debrief. This is not a blame-seeking operational review, though that will happen separately. This is an emotional processing session, led by a crew member trained in trauma response. The debrief follows a specific structure. Each person is given uninterrupted time to describe their experience of the event from their own perspective, what they saw, heard, and felt. This act of vocalizing the experience is powerfully therapeutic. It helps to organize the chaotic, sensory overload of the trauma into a coherent narrative. Hearing others share their perspectives also normalizes individual reactions. One person might confess to having frozen in fear for a few critical seconds, only to hear two others admit the same thing, instantly dissolving feelings of shame or guilt. The facilitator helps the group identify the specific aspects that were most frightening, perhaps the sound of the alarm, the sight of a crewmate in distress, or the feeling of helplessness, and introduces coping strategies for those specific triggers. This session always concludes by highlighting the positives, what the crew did right, how they worked together, and the fact that they survived. This process of communal storytelling transforms a potentially isolating traumatic event into a shared experience of survival, actively weaving it into the group's identity in a way that prevents it from festering as individual, silent PTSD. Throughout this entire process, leadership behavior is the single most influential factor in the crew's psychological recovery. The commander's role is to model what psychologists call calm realism. This is not a false, stoic optimism that dismisses the danger, but a confident acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation paired with a clear focus on the path forward. In the midst of the crisis, a good leader's voice on the comms is steady and direct, providing clear instructions without a trace of panic. In the aftermath, that same leader is the first to be vulnerable, perhaps sharing their own fear during the event, and then articulating their pride in the team's response. They visibly utilize the safe zones and participate fully in the debriefs, demonstrating that prioritizing mental health is a sign of strength, not weakness. Their ability to project hope, not a naive hope that bad things won't happen, but a resilient hope that the crew can handle anything that does happen, is infectious. It reinforces the collective efficacy of the group, the deeply held belief that we can get through this together. This leadership, combined with the pre-existing bonds of trust and the practiced protocols, creates a powerful container that holds the colonists emotionally safe even when their physical safety has been profoundly threatened. The crisis, as terrifying as it was, ultimately becomes a reference point for their collective resilience, a story they will tell not with horror, but with a sense of hard-earned pride, proving that their psychological design can withstand even the worst that Mars can throw at them. This proven capacity to endure and grow from trauma becomes an essential foundation for the most difficult psychological challenge of all. This profound confrontation with mortality is perhaps the most sobering aspect of the Martian reality, a psychological frontier as vast and uncharted as the physical landscape itself. On Earth, the rituals of death are supported by a vast, often invisible, infrastructure funeral homes, grief counselors, support networks of family and friends, and the comforting presence of familiar spiritual traditions. On Mars, that infrastructure must be built from scratch, and it must be designed to function within a context of extreme resource limitation and absolute isolation. The loss of a crewmate is not just a personal tragedy, it is a community-wide crisis that threatens operational stability and collective morale. There is no option to send a body home, no possibility for a family to gather for a traditional funeral. Every aspect of death, from the practical to the profoundly emotional, must be handled within the confines of the habitat by the very people who are also grieving. This necessitates a radical shift in perspective, moving death from a taboo subject whispered about in hospitals to an integrated, accepted, and openly discussed part of the colony's life cycle. Long before a single colonist sets foot on the Red Planet, their training will include extensive, realistic modules on grief counseling and end-of-life care. Every member of the crew, regardless of their primary specialization, will receive basic training in how to support a dying colleague and how to guide the community through the subsequent grief. They will practice difficult conversations in simulations, learning how to manage their own emotions while providing comfort to others. A botanist might need to know how to administer palliative care. An engineer might need to facilitate a group therapy session. This universal competency ensures that the burden of care does not fall solely on the crew's medical officer, and that the community possesses a shared language and skill set for navigating loss. The practicalities of death are also addressed with clear, compassionate protocols. The question of what to do with a body is not left for the moment of crisis. The colony will have a designated, respectful method for handling remains, likely involving a sterile, sealed container within the habitat's cold storage, not out of disrespect, but as a necessary preservation measure until a permanent memorial solution can be implemented, perhaps involving incorporation into the regolith in a designated memorial garden. These protocols, however cold they may sound on paper, are designed to remove uncertainty and additional trauma from the immediate aftermath of a death, allowing the community to focus on the emotional work of grieving. Central to this emotional work is the creation of new, meaningful rituals. Without Earth's religious or cultural frameworks readily available, the colony will need to develop its own ceremonies for honoring a life and marking a death. These rituals will likely be deeply personalized, reflecting the unique character of the individual who died and the specific nature of the community they helped build. A ceremony might involve a collective reading of the colonists' personal log entries, a sharing of favorite memories around the dinner table, or the playing of a piece of music they composed. Their personal effects wouldn't just be packed away, they might be incorporated into the habitat, a tool they cherished put on display, a plant they nurtured becoming a living memorial. The concept of a funeral would be replaced by a celebration of legacy. The community would focus not just on the pain of the loss, but on the tangible contributions the person made to the mission. Did they develop a more efficient algorithm for the water recyclers? Their name could be attached to it. Were they the heart of the community's music nights? A digital archive of their performances could be created. This active remembrance transforms grief from a passive state of sorrow into an active process of honoring and continuing the work of the deceased, ensuring their spirit remains a part of the colony's ongoing story. To support this, the colony's culture would consciously integrate philosophical and spiritual perspectives that normalize impermanence and provide a framework for finding meaning in the face of mortality. Secular philosophies like Stoicism, which teaches the acceptance of events outside one's control, and existentialism, which emphasizes creating meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe, would offer powerful, rational tools for coping. At the same time, the diverse spiritual backgrounds of the colonists would be respected and woven into the fabric of their memorial practices. A colonist with Buddhist leanings might find comfort in a meditation on impermanence, while another from a Christian tradition might organize a prayer circle. The key is that these perspectives are not siloed. They become part of a shared, hybrid Martian spirituality focused on resilience, interconnectedness, and the awe of existence itself. This open dialogue about death, far from being morbid, serves a vital psychological purpose. It reduces the power of fear and denial. By staring directly into the reality of their own finite existence in such an unforgiving environment, the colonists paradoxically liberate themselves to live more fully and courageously in the present. The awareness that time is limited and that each soul is a precious gift becomes a driving force for connection, creativity, and purpose, ensuring that the shadow of loss ultimately makes the light of life on Mars burn all the more brightly. In this environment of immense pressure and structured survival, creativity becomes far more than a hobby. It transforms into a critical life support system for the mind itself. The relentless focus on procedure and the ever-present background hum of danger create a cognitive load that demands an outlet, a pressure valve for the human spirit. This is where the arts and innovation step in, not as frivolous extras, but as fundamental tools for maintaining psychological equilibrium and ensuring the colony's long-term adaptability. Imagine a geologist, after a long sol analyzing core samples, returning to their quarters not to collapse in exhaustion, but to pick up a digital stylus and lose themselves in painting a surreal landscape inspired by the day's findings, blending the reds of Mars with impossible blues from earthly memory. This act does more than pass the time. It is a form of active meditation, a way to process the profound and often overwhelming experience of their daily reality through a different lens. It allows emotions that have no place in a technical manual, awe, melancholy, wonder, loneliness to find expression and release. The colony's culture actively fosters this, providing resources and, most importantly, valuing the time spent on these pursuits as highly as time spent on maintenance logs. Digital canvases, musical instruments, 3D modeling software, and writing platforms are considered essential personal equipment, as vital to mental health as a comfortable pair of boots is to physical health. Shared spaces often feature galleries of crew creations, and informal concerts or poetry readings become regular events, strengthening social bonds through vulnerability and shared appreciation. This creative expression becomes a universal language, allowing colonists to communicate parts of their inner world that might otherwise remain hidden, building deeper empathy and understanding within the group. Beyond the deeply personal, creativity is also the colony's most powerful engine for practical problem solving. The unpredictable Martian environment guarantees that pre-packaged solutions from Earth will frequently fall short. A part breaks and there's no replacement for 6 months. A system behaves in a way the manuals never anticipated. This is where structured innovation, like hackathons or invention challenges, shifts from a corporate team building exercise to a vital survival skill. The colony might regularly schedule a solution sol, where a particularly stubborn problem, perhaps the dust clogging a particular joint in a rover's arm, or the inefficient power drain of a lighting array, is presented to the entire crew, regardless of their official specialization. The botanist, the doctor, the geologist, and the engineer all bring completely different perspectives to the table. The botanist, thinking about vascular systems in plants, might suggest a new design for tubing that minimizes clogging points. The doctor, understanding ergonomics, might redesign a control panel to reduce fatigue and error. These collaborative sessions do more than just generate clever fixes. They break down professional silos and reinforce a powerful sense of collective intelligence and agency. They transform feelings of frustration and helplessness in the face of a malfunction into the energizing thrill of a puzzle to be solved together. Every successful innovation, no matter how small, is celebrated not just for its utility, but for the creative process that spawned it, reinforcing a culture that values curiosity and unconventional thinking. This constant mental engagement is a powerful antidote to the cognitive stagnation that can set in during long-duration missions, keeping minds sharp, agile, and primed for the next unexpected challenge. Over time, this sustained focus on creative expression and inventive problem-solving will inevitably give birth to a unique cultural fingerprint, a distinctly Martian aesthetic and technological style. The art produced won't just look like Earth art made on Mars. It will be born from the Martian experience itself. We might see a new color palette emerge, dominated by the rusty ochres, dusty pinks, and deep blacks of the landscape, but punctuated by the vibrant, almost shocking greens of the hydroponic gardens, a constant visual dialogue between the planet and the life it hosts. Music might incorporate the natural soundscape of the habitat, the rhythmic thrum of life support, the harmonic hum of generators woven into compositions that sound both alien and familiar. Technologically, the principle of jury rigging will evolve into a high art form. Objects and tools will be designed not for mass production and disposal, but for infinite repair, adaptation, and reconfiguration. This Martian maker ethos, born from absolute necessity, could prioritize elegance in simplicity, robustness, and multi-functionality, creating a design language that is instantly recognizable. A piece of hardware might serve as a structural support, a data conduit, and a heat exchanger, all while being aesthetically beautiful in its sheer efficiency. This emerging culture, a blend of art and engineering, becomes the colony's own authentic identity, a source of immense pride and a testament to their ability to not just live in this world, but to imprint themselves upon it, to create and not merely consume. This organic, bottom-up flowering of culture, nurtured by the need for emotional release and practical invention, ensures the colony remains a dynamic, evolving, and deeply human place, ready to embrace the next element of its psychological design, the delicate balance between individual freedom and communal structure. This delicate dance between personal freedom and collective safety is one of the most nuanced psychological challenges the Mars colony will face. On one hand, a complete lack of autonomy, being treated like a cog in a machine, is a fast track to feelings of helplessness, depression, and passive compliance. On the other, utter chaos and a total free-for-all would be just as dangerous in an environment where a single, unapproved action could depressurize the entire habitat. The solution is not to choose one over the other, but to architect a society that masterfully blends them, creating a system where structure enables freedom rather than restricts it. Imagine the colony's rulebook not as a thick, imposing manual of thou shalt nots, but as a living document, a framework that establishes the non-negotiable safety boundaries, the absolute must DOS and must not DOS, while leaving vast open spaces within those boundaries for individual choice and creativity. The rule might state that all exterior hatch operations require a specific two-person verification protocol. That is the rigid structure, but within that, the colonists have complete autonomy over how they design their checklist, what time of day they schedule the activity, and even how they communicate the steps to one another. This transforms a safety procedure from a top-down order into a personal responsibility, a piece of the system that they own and can even improve upon. This philosophy of empowered ownership extends into every corner of daily life. While the overall mission objectives are set, we need to produce X amount of oxygen, conduct Y number of experiments. The how is often up for grabs. A botanist isn't just told to tend to the hydroponic bays. They are given the goal of maximizing crop yield and then unleashed to experiment with different nutrient solutions, lighting schedules, and planting techniques. They have the autonomy to fail, to learn, and to innovate. An engineer tasked with improving power efficiency might completely redesign the layout of a solar panel cleaning rover because they had the freedom to think outside the pre-supplied Earth-based manual. This sense of ownership is profoundly motivating. It tells each colonist, your intellect, your creativity, and your judgment are trusted and valued here. It moves them from being passengers on this mission to being active pilots, invested in the outcome because they had a hand in shaping the journey. This is further reinforced through the habitat's design. While the core structure is fixed, the interior is remarkably malleable. Movable partitions, customizable lighting in personal quarters, and even the ability to rearrange common area furniture allow colonists to literally reshape their environment. This ability to impose their will on their surroundings, to create a corner of the universe that feels truly theirs, is a powerful antidote to the potentially oppressive uniformity of the habitat. Governance itself is a participatory exercise, meticulously designed to prevent the feelings of powerlessness that can breed resentment. Major decisions that affect the entire colony aren't made behind a closed door by a single commander. Instead, they are debated in regular town hall meetings where every colonist has a platform. The process might use elements of sociocracy or consensus-based decision-making, where the goal isn't necessarily a simple majority vote, but to find a solution that everyone can live with, even if it's not their first choice. For instance, deciding how to allocate extra power resources might involve a lengthy discussion where the geologist argues for more energy for a rock analysis instrument. The doctor advocates for it to go to a new medical scanner, and the person in charge of recreation makes a case for boosting the VR suite's capabilities. Through facilitated discussion, they might arrive at a compromise that gives a little to each, or they might decide to run a one-month trial for each proposal and collect data. This process is time-consuming, but its psychological value is immense. It ensures everyone feels heard. Even if your idea isn't the one chosen, you were part of the process. You understand the reasoning behind the final decision, which fosters buy-in and prevents the corrosive whisperings of "they never listen to us" that can fracture a small group. This transparent, inclusive approach to governance builds a deep and resilient culture of mutual trust and shared responsibility. However, this democratic ideal exists within a clear and unwavering safety framework. The colony is not a pure democracy in an emergency. The moment a red alert sounds, the system instantly flips. Predefined emergency protocols activate, and command authority flows immediately to those trained for that specific crisis. The geologist who was just passionately debating power allocation now becomes a follower, executing the orders of the life support specialist without question. This isn't a contradiction, it's an essential safeguard. Everyone understands and has trained for this switch. The autonomy they enjoy during normal operations is made possible by the trust they have in the structure that will protect them during abnormal ones. They willingly cede personal freedom in a crisis because they know that structure is what will keep them alive, and that their autonomy will be restored once the emergency has passed. This clear delineation actually strengthens the sense of overall safety, allowing colonists to relax into their personal freedoms during peacetime, knowing a robust safety net is always there. This elegant balance between individual choice and collective security is the hallmark of a mature, psychologically resilient society. one that empowers its people to flourish while ensuring the entire community remains protected against the unforgiving realities of their new world. Imagine, after months of the same rust-colored vistas and the constant hum of machinery, slipping on a headset and finding yourself standing on a familiar beach. The sound of waves crashing, the feel of virtual sun on your skin, the scent of salt water piped through a light aroma diffuser. For 20 minutes, you are not on Mars. You are home. This is the profound power of virtual reality, a technology that serves as a critical psychological lifeline, offering a necessary escape from the sensory deprivation of the habitat. But its role extends far beyond simple escapism. Augmented reality, meanwhile, seamlessly blends the digital with the physical, overlaying crucial data and guidance onto a colonist's field of view during a complex repair or a scientific survey, transforming tedious tasks into engaging, interactive experiences. Together, these technologies form a dynamic digital layer that actively enhances daily life, combating monotony, boosting efficiency, and safeguarding mental health in ways that were once the realm of science fiction. The application of virtual reality for psychological respite is one of its most vital functions. The Martian environment, for all its grandeur, presents a palette of endless rust and gray, a visual monotony that can lead to a specific form of mental fatigue known as Martian fatigue. To counter this, colonists have access to an extensive library of immersive experiences meticulously curated. Their therapeutic value: one might choose to spend their off-duty time walking through a redwood forest with sunlight dappling through the leaves, attending a live-streamed concert from Earth as a photorealistic avatar in a virtual crowd, or even exploring entirely fantastical environments designed to spark wonder and creativity. These aren't just videos, they are fully interactive worlds that engage multiple senses. Haptic feedback suits can simulate the feeling of a breeze or the rumble of a virtual vehicle, while advanced aroma generators release scents congruent with the environment: pine needles, rain on dry earth, baked goods from a virtual Parisian bakery. This multisensory immersion provides a complete cognitive reset, a necessary vacation for the mind that reduces stress, alleviates feelings of claustrophobia, and helps prevent the depression that can stem from sensory deprivation. It is a deliberate and controlled form of escapism, a pressure valve that allows colonists to release the pent-up longing for Earth's diversity without ever leaving the safety of the habitat. Beyond these personal escapes, VR becomes an indispensable tool for high-stakes training and skill maintenance. Practicing a delicate surgical procedure or rehearsing the complex steps of a habitat repair for the first time in the real world carries immense risk. In a fully immersive VR simulation, however, a colonist can practice these tasks countless times, making mistakes that have no real-world consequences. The simulations can replicate every conceivable emergency, from a sudden decompression to a critical systems failure, allowing the crew to run through drills with a level of realism that flat-screen simulations could never provide. This repeated, realistic exposure builds not just muscle memory, but also what psychologists call stress inoculation. By experiencing the visual and auditory chaos of a crisis in a safe virtual space, colonists build a tolerance for the adrenaline rush and cognitive overload, enabling them to remain calmer and more focused when a real emergency occurs. This technology also fights skill decay. A pilot can keep their landing procedures sharp by practicing on a virtual Martian landscape long before a supply ship ever arrives. This constant, risk-free rehearsal ensures that when a critical real-world task must be performed, it feels familiar, almost routine, dramatically increasing the chances of success and survival. Augmented reality, in contrast, weaves digital information directly into the colonists' perception of their real-world environment through smart glasses or helmet visors. During a maintenance task on a faulty water reclamation unit, a colonist doesn't need to fumble with a physical manual or a tablet. An AR overlay can highlight the specific component that needs replacement with a glowing outline, display animated disassembly instructions superimposed directly onto the machinery, and even provide real-time sensor data showing pressure and flow rates. This turns a potentially frustrating and time-consuming job into an efficient, guided process, reducing cognitive load and minimizing errors. For a scientist conducting a geological survey, AR can instantly analyze a rock sample in their hand, overlaying its mineral composition and suggesting the most relevant tests to perform. This seamless integration of data and reality doesn't just make work easier, it makes it more engaging and intellectually stimulating, transforming routine chores into interactive puzzles and reinforcing a sense of competence and mastery. Perhaps one of the most poignant applications of this technology is in bridging the vast emotional distance to Earth. While video calls are possible, the 20-minute communication delay makes spontaneous conversation impossible, a constant reminder of the separation. Social VR platforms offer a powerful alternative. Colonists can meet with their families on Earth as full-bodied avatars in a neutral virtual space, a digital living room, a peaceful garden, a replica of their favorite restaurant. While they can't truly chat in real time, they can share activities in these spaces. They might watch a movie together, build a virtual model, or simply sit and share a long-form video message while being able to see the other person's avatar nodding and smiling in response. This simulated co-presence, the ability to share a virtual space and engage in a shared activity, provides a much deeper sense of connection than a flat video screen ever could. It helps to close the emotional gap created by the physical distance, making loved ones feel less like distant images and more like participants in a shared experience, which is crucial for maintaining long-term emotional bonds. The colony's psychological support system also leverages these tools for direct mental health interventions. VR exposure therapy can be used to help a colonist gradually confront and manage specific anxieties or phobias in a completely controlled environment. For someone struggling with the fear of wide open spaces during extravehicular activities, a therapist could guide them through progressively more expansive virtual Martian landscapes until the anxiety subsides. Virtual support groups can connect colonists experiencing similar stresses, allowing them to meet in a comforting virtual environment to share experiences and coping strategies, facilitated by an AI or a human therapist. This provides a layer of accessible, immediate, and private mental health support that is available around the clock, ensuring that help is always at hand before small struggles escalate into larger crises. However, the pervasive use of these immersive technologies is carefully managed to avoid a significant danger: dissociation from reality and over-reliance. The virtual world, no matter how beautiful, cannot become a preferred alternative to the real work of building a life on Mars. Strict protocols govern usage times to prevent addiction and ensure that colonists remain fully engaged with their physical environment and their crewmates. The technology is seen as a tool for enhancing reality, not replacing it. The goal is always to use these digital escapes to refresh and recharge, so that colonists return to their actual lives with renewed focus and appreciation for the tangible, human connections being forged right beside them in the habitat. This balanced integration ensures that virtual and augmented reality act as supportive pillars in the psychological architecture of the colony, enriching daily existence without ever undermining the profound importance of the real, shared world they are building together. But building a truly lasting society requires moving beyond the initial bonds of a mission crew and forging the deeper, more intricate connections of a civilization. This isn't a transition that happens by accident. It is a deliberate and ongoing process of community building, where every interaction is a brick in the foundation of a new culture. The shared meals and game nights that were so vital in the early days evolve into something more profound. They become the essential, non-negotiable rituals of communal life, the sacred spaces where the social fabric is continuously woven and repaired. These gatherings are the primary incubator for the colony's unique identity. It's around the dinner table that inside jokes are born, transforming a minor mishap with a rover into a legendary story that will be retold for years. A collaborative project to build a new greenhouse bench becomes more than a task. It's a shared accomplishment that reinforces a powerful sense of collective efficacy, the deeply held belief that we can build anything together. This slow accumulation of shared experiences, both mundane and extraordinary, gradually transforms a group of individuals from Earth into a coherent community of Martians, bound by a common history that is entirely their own. This nascent culture will inevitably seek and find its own forms of expression, giving birth to traditions and celebrations that are uniquely Martian. The colony's calendar will quickly fill with holidays that have no counterpart on Earth. Landing Day will be the most sacred, a combination of solemn remembrance for the courage of the first pioneers and raucous celebration of their survival. The first successful harvest of a truly Martian crop, perhaps a potato variety bred specifically for the red soil, will become its own annual feast, a Thanksgiving under the stars. Even the Martian solstices will be marked, likely with festivals of light to push back against the perpetual dimness of the sky, reinforcing the cycle of their new year. These rituals provide the essential rhythm and punctuation marks for their lives, creating a shared timeline that everyone is invested in. Alongside these holidays, a new pantheon of heroes will emerge. They won't be distant historical figures from Earth, but the people sitting next to them. The story of the engineer who jury-rigged a life-saving repair during the first great dust storm, or the botanist who spent years perfecting the soil for the first apple tree, will be told and retold, becoming the foundational myths of their society. These narratives serve a crucial purpose. They codify the values the colony holds dear: ingenuity, perseverance, and selfless collaboration, and provide tangible role models for every new generation. As the community stabilizes and looks toward a long-term future, its very structure will begin to change in the most profound way possible, with the arrival of children. The birth of the first child on Mars will represent the ultimate declaration that this is no longer an outpost, but a home. This event will fundamentally reshape the colony's social dynamics, pushing the concept of interdependence from a principle into a daily, practical reality. Childcare and education cannot be the sole responsibility of the parents. They will become a core community function. The entire colony has a vested interest in the well-being and development of its youngest members. You might see geologists taking turns teaching basic planetary science to a group of fascinated 5-year-olds, or a structural engineer explaining the principles of physics using building blocks. This isn't just about sharing the workload. It's about ensuring that every child is exposed to a wide range of perspectives and skills, and it reinforces for every adult their vital role in nurturing the colony's future. The children themselves will become a powerful unifying force, a living, breathing symbol of the shared investment in tomorrow. Their laughter echoing through the corridors will be a constant reminder of what everyone is working so hard to protect and build. This evolution from a crew to a multi-generational civilization is the ultimate test of the psychological blueprint. It requires a conscious shift in mindset from short-term survival to long-term thriving. The conflicts that arise will no longer just be about interpersonal friction or mission priorities. They will be about values, education philosophies, and the kind of society they are creating for their children. The conflict resolution frameworks established early on will be more important than ever, providing a safe and structured way to navigate these deeply meaningful disagreements. The goal is not to avoid conflict, but to harness its energy to forge stronger compromises and more inclusive solutions. This process, as challenging as it is what will give the Martian society its resilience and vibrancy. It is the heart of the endeavor, transforming a scientific mission into a living, breathing civilization with its own unique culture, values, and destiny, all of which will be passed down to the first true Martians, who will experience a childhood unlike any in human history. The arrival of the first child born on Mars will mark a pivotal moment in human history, a transition from a crew of explorers to a true multi-generational society. But this new chapter introduces a profound psychological question. How do you raise a human being in a world that is fundamentally alien to everything in our evolutionary history? These children, the first true Martians, will experience a reality unlike any before them. Their entire sensory world will be manufactured. They will never feel wind on their face, never swim in an ocean, never know the simple, unconscious freedom of stepping outside without a suit. Their sky will be a perpetual pinkish orange, their horizon unnervingly close, and their entire known social universe will consist of the few dozen or 100 other souls in the colony. This isn't just a different culture, it's a different developmental pathway for the human mind, and psychologists are working now to design an upbringing that doesn't just keep these children safe, but allows them to flourish as well-adjusted, empathetic, and fully realized individuals. The design of their physical environment is the first layer of this developmental blueprint. Every space a child interacts with must be intentionally crafted to stimulate growth in a world devoid of natural variety. This goes far beyond child-proofing sharp edges. Imagine a playground that isn't a separate room, but is woven into the fabric of the habitat itself. Climbing structures might double as architectural supports, encouraging physical development and risk assessment in a safe, controlled manner. Walls could be interactive surfaces, shifting from displaying the periodic table to a vast, immersive star chart at a touch, turning a simple corridor into a portal for cosmic education. The hydroponic gardens become living classrooms where biology is not an abstract subject but a daily practice vital for survival. Even the acoustics are considered. Areas for quiet reading and focused play are acoustically dampened to prevent sensory overload, while communal spaces are designed to encourage the joyful, noisy chaos of collaborative games. The goal is to create an environment that is perpetually engaging, one that compensates for the lack of open fields and forests by offering a rich, multi-sensory tapestry of man-made wonder that actively cultivates curiosity, creativity, and physical competence. Perhaps the most complex challenge will be socialization. On Earth, children learn empathy and social nuance through a vast, often unplanned web of interactions with extended family, classmates, teachers, and even strangers at a park. On Mars, their social circle is intensely small and curated. To prevent this from leading to insularity or social stagnation, caregivers will employ deliberate strategies. Multi-age groupings will be the norm, ensuring that younger children learn from older role models and that older children practice nurturing and leadership. Conflict resolution will be taught not as a punitive measure, but as a core skill, using tools like role-playing games where children act out different perspectives to solve a shared problem. The colony's limited population also means that every child will need to understand the direct impact of their actions on the community's well-being. A child's careless mistake could have real consequences, so education will focus on fostering a deep, intrinsic sense of responsibility and cooperation, moving beyond simple rule following to a genuine understanding of interdependence. They will be raised with the mantra that the community's survival depends on every individual's contribution, forging a powerful collective identity from their earliest years. Yet, while their Martian identity will be primary, maintaining a connection to their earthly heritage is equally crucial to prevent a sense of cosmic loneliness or disconnection from humanity. This will be a carefully managed balancing act. Through immersive media and a tailored educational curriculum, they will learn about Earth's oceans, forests, history, and diverse cultures. They might have virtual reality field trips to the Louvre or the Great Barrier Reef, and video pen pals their own age on Earth. However, this connection will always be framed through a Martian lens. They won't be taught to see Earth as a lost paradise, but as humanity's origin planet, a place of immense beauty and complexity that is also fundamentally different from their home. Simultaneously, the colony will be actively building its own unique traditions. Martian holidays will be established, like Landing Day or First Harvest Festival. They will develop their own art, music, and folklore, stories about the first settlers that will become their foundational myths. This dual identity, Martian by experience, human by ancestry, will give them a powerful sense of belonging to both their immediate community and the broader species, preventing the kind of existential drift that could occur in such an isolated society. The adults raising these children will themselves require specialized training. Parenting on Mars is a high-stakes profession. There's no option to simply send a rebellious teenager to a different school or call in extended family for support. Every parent and caregiver will be trained in child psychology for isolated environments, learning to identify the subtle signs of developmental issues that might be unique to this context. They'll be experts in fostering resilience, teaching their children how to reframe setbacks as engineering puzzles and how to sit with the frustration of a confined life without succumbing to despair. Emotional intelligence will be the most critical subject for both parents and children. Adults will model vulnerability and emotional regulation, showing that it's okay to feel homesick for a planet you've never seen or scared of the vastness outside, and then demonstrating healthy coping strategies. The entire community will share the responsibility, creating a culture where every adult is a mentor and every child knows they have multiple trusted figures to turn to, ensuring that the immense weight of raising the first Martians is supported by the entire village they are building together. Over generations, the very psychology of the Martian settlers will begin to drift, shaped by the relentless pressures of an environment unlike any humanity has ever called home. This won't be a simple cultural shift. It's a deeper, more fundamental evolution of the human mind, a biological and social adaptation to a world that demands a new way of being. The first and most profound influences will be physical. The persistent one-third gravity of Mars will do more than change how people move. It may rewire the brain's very relationship with space and risk. On Earth, our brains are hardwired with a cautious understanding of gravity. A fall from a few meters can be fatal. On Mars, that ingrained fear could soften. A child who grows up leaping down corridors that would be several stories high on Earth might develop a completely different, far more audacious assessment of physical risk. Their spatial reasoning, their coordination, even their propensity for adventurous play could be fundamentally altered, fostering a generation that is physically bolder and more acrobatic, with a cognitive map of the world that is literally more vertical. Beyond gravity, the constant, low-level background radiation on Mars, while mitigated by habitat shielding, represents a persistent environmental stressor that is absent on Earth. The long-term effects on human neurobiology are a fascinating unknown. Some researchers speculate that this could lead to a selection pressure for cognitive traits that are highly resilient to oxidative stress, potentially influencing neural plasticity and even longevity of brain function. More profoundly, the perpetual reality of living inside a sealed, fragile bubble against a lethal outside world could forge a unique psychological profile. The ever-present awareness of environmental vulnerability might cultivate a deep-seated pragmatism and a systems-thinking mentality from a very young age. Martian children might intuitively understand complex interdependencies, how the air they breathe is tied to the plants they grow, which is tied to the waste they recycle, in a way that feels abstract to most Earthlings. This could foster a cognitive style that is exceptionally holistic, forward-thinking, and preemptively risk-averse when it comes to their life support systems, yet paradoxically more comfortable with calculated technological risks in other areas. Culturally, this evolution will be accelerated and directed by the stories they tell and the values they enshrine. The founding myths of Martian society won't be about ancient conquests or revolutions. They will be stories of ingenuity, of the time the community came together to 3D print a critical replacement part, or the legend of the first botanist who coaxed a crop from the red soil. These narratives will consciously celebrate cooperation over competition, collective survival over individual glory. The cultural heroes will be the fixers, the adapters, the calm problem solvers. This will likely nurture a social psychology that is intensely communal and interdependent, where social approval is earned through collaboration and contribution to the whole. The extreme danger of the environment makes reckless individualism a threat to everyone, so the culture will naturally discourage narcissism and aggression, instead rewarding empathy, patience, and emotional intelligence. This isn't to say they will be uniform. Rather, their individualism will express itself within a tight framework of shared responsibility, leading to a society that might view Earth's more competitive and stratified social models as perplexingly inefficient and even dangerous. From this fusion of biological adaptation and cultural engineering, psychologists speculate we could see the emergence of a true Martian mindset. This would be a psyche that is intensely pragmatic and utilitarian, valuing solutions that work over ideologies that sound good. It would be highly adaptable, comfortable with constant change and technological iteration as the norm. It would be forward-thinking on a multi-generational scale, making decisions based on a 100-year horizon because they understand that their survival depends on that long-term perspective. Yet, counterbalancing this almost hyper-rational pragmatism would be a profound, non-negotiable connection to community. Their identity would be inextricably linked to their crew, their habitat, their colony. This blend of cool rationality and deep warmth, of fearless innovation and meticulous caution, would make them psychologically distinct from their Earth-born ancestors. They would become a human subspecies not just in physiology, but in cognition and spirit, uniquely equipped by both nature and nurture for the challenges of long-term spacefaring. Understanding this potential trajectory is not just an academic exercise, it is a critical responsibility for the founders. It allows us to design the initial social structures, educational systems, and cultural narratives not as rigid controls, but as a flexible framework that guides this evolution toward positive outcomes, fostering resilience, creativity, and well-being. while consciously mitigating potential unintended consequences like excessive conformity or a loss of connection to their own humanity. This glimpse into the distant future reveals that the most lasting legacy of the first Martian colony may not be the technology it develops, but the new kind of human it ultimately becomes. But as we design these sophisticated systems to safeguard mental health and shape a new culture, we inevitably cross into a profound ethical frontier, one where the very tools of support could become instruments of control. The power to influence emotions, to nudge behavior, and to design a society from the ground up carries with it an immense responsibility, raising a central, haunting question: where is the line between fostering well-being and engineering compliance? This isn't a theoretical debate. It's a practical dilemma that will confront every architect and resident of the Mars colony. The goal is a harmonious, resilient society, but the methods to achieve it must be scrutinized under the brightest ethical lights to ensure we are building a civilization of free, authentic individuals, not a perfectly managed hive of contented but manipulated souls. At the heart of this dilemma is the principle of informed consent. On Earth, we consent to certain levels of monitoring for security or convenience. Smartphones track our locations. Social media algorithms influence what we see. On Mars, the stakes are infinitely higher. The biometric sensors that track stress, the AI that analyzes speech patterns for signs of depression, the architectural layouts designed to encourage specific social interactions, these are all forms of intervention. For them to be ethical, they cannot be imposed secretly. Every colonist must have complete and ongoing transparency into what data is being collected, how it is being used, and most importantly, why. This means easy-to-understand dashboards where individuals can see their own emotional metrics, clear explanations of how an AI might suggest a counseling session or a social activity, and regular community forums where these policies are openly debated and can be revised. Consent cannot be a box checked once before launch. It must be a living, renewable agreement. A colonist must always have the right to opt out of non-critical monitoring without any fear of stigma or reprisal, even if mission psychologists believe it's for their own good. This preserves the ultimate authority where it belongs, with the individual over their own mind. This becomes especially critical when we consider the potential for subtle coercion. A well-intentioned nudge, like an AI system suggesting you might be happier if you attended a group dinner, can easily slide into something more manipulative if the underlying algorithms are not transparent. What if the system begins prioritizing suggestions that align with mission efficiency over an individual's genuine desires? What if a leader, armed with detailed emotional data on their crew, uses that knowledge not to support them, but to manage them more effectively, bypassing difficult conversations with strategic psychological interventions? To prevent this, every algorithmic system must be governed by strict, pre-established ethical guidelines that are auditable by an independent, Earth-based oversight committee. These guidelines would explicitly forbid using emotional data for performance reviews, assigning undesirable tasks, or any form of punishment. The AI's role must be strictly limited to offering options and support, never making decisions for the colonists or applying pressure. The human must always be in the loop, with the final say on any action that affects their own mental state. The ethical challenge expands from the individual to the entire society when we consider the concept of cultural engineering. The very act of designing rituals, governance models, and shared values is an attempt to shape culture. Is it ethical to consciously design a culture that, for example, strongly discourages individualism in favor of collectivism because it's deemed necessary for survival? This moves into fraught territory, echoing historical attempts at social engineering that have had devastating consequences. The key distinction lies in process versus imposition. A healthy approach would be to create a framework that allows a culture to emerge organically from the shared experiences of the colonists, while providing them with the tools and knowledge from Earth's diverse social sciences to make conscious choices about their direction. It would be about facilitating cultural evolution, not dictating it. This means presenting a plurality of philosophical ideas, governance models, and social structures for the community to debate, adapt, and adopt as their own. The founders might provide the seeds, but the colonists must be the ones to tend the garden, ensuring the resulting culture is a true reflection of their collective will and identity, not a top-down blueprint. Ultimately, the entire ethical framework for the Martian colony must be built on a foundation of trust and a shared commitment to human dignity. The technology and the psychological strategies are merely tools, and like any tools, their value is determined by the hands that wield them and the intentions behind their use. The relentless, open debate around these issues involving not just psychologists and commanders, but every colonist and a watchful global audience on Earth is the best defense against ethical drift. It is this commitment to questioning our own methods, to prioritizing freedom even when efficiency seems to demand otherwise, that will ensure the first Martian civilization is not just a triumph of survival, but a beacon of what humanity can become when it chooses to expand into the universe with both wisdom and unwavering respect for the individual human spirit. But building this resilient society requires more than just selecting for specific personality types or designing effective group rituals. To truly thrive, the Mars colony must be a tapestry woven from the fullest spectrum of human experience. This means moving beyond a one-size-fits-all approach to psychological design and instead creating an environment that is inherently inclusive, one that doesn't just tolerate diversity but actively celebrates and leverages it as its greatest strategic asset. The goal is to architect a civilization where every single mind, regardless of its unique wiring, can find its place and contribute its particular genius. This requires a deep and nuanced understanding of human variation, considering everything from where a person falls on the introversion-extroversion spectrum to their specific sensory sensitivities, learning styles, and cultural communication patterns. The habitat itself must be designed with this neurodiversity in mind. For instance, while open-plan communal areas are vital for social bonding, they can be auditory and visual nightmares for someone who is highly sensitive or on the autism spectrum. The solution isn't to force that individual to adapt, but to design the space to accommodate them. This means creating an abundance of quiet nooks and sound-dampened retreats adjacent to the main social hubs, allowing someone feeling overstimulated to step away for a moment of solitude without being socially isolated. Lighting systems would be customizable, allowing individuals to dial down harsh overhead lights in their workspace or quarters in favor of softer, warmer tones. Even the daily schedule can be structured to offer flexibility. While group meals might be encouraged, there could always be an option for a quieter, later meal for those who need to recharge alone after a day of intense social interaction. This thoughtful design ensures that the need for solitude is treated not as antisocial behavior, but as a legitimate and necessary form of self-care that benefits the entire community by ensuring every member is operating at their best. This commitment to inclusivity extends powerfully into the composition of the team itself. The most successful colony won't be made up of a dozen identical, ultra-resilient superachievers. In fact, that kind of homogeneity would be a profound weakness. Instead, the real strength lies in assembling a crew with deeply complementary strengths. You need the big-picture visionary who can dream up audacious solutions, But you also need the meticulous, detail-oriented perfectionist who will spend hours triple-checking every weld on that solution to ensure it doesn't fail under pressure. You need the fast-talking, energetic extrovert who can boost morale and facilitate a heated debate. And you need the quiet, deeply observant introvert who notices the subtle shift in a crewmate's behavior that everyone else missed, allowing for early intervention before a small frustration becomes a major conflict. A team composed entirely of creative free thinkers might generate 1,000 brilliant ideas but lack the focus to implement a single one. A team of only cautious, rule-following pragmatists would be incredibly safe but might never innovate or adapt to truly novel problems. It is the friction between these different cognitive styles that sparks the most ingenious solutions. The artful project manager will know to pair the dreamer with the pragmatist on a task force, not to force them to become the same, but to allow their contrasting approaches to balance and refine each other, creating an outcome that is far more robust than anything either could have produced alone. This philosophy of inclusion must also embrace the rich tapestry of cultural backgrounds that the colonists bring with them from Earth. The colony cannot become a monoculture, a mere extension of the nation or organization that funded the mission. To do so would be to ignore a vast reservoir of human knowledge and perspective. The goal is to foster a rich, hybrid culture where diverse traditions are not just tolerated, but are actively integrated into the fabric of daily life. This could mean that the communal calendar recognizes a variety of earthly holidays from Diwali to Christmas to Eid al-Fitr, with colonists sharing the stories, foods, and meanings behind each celebration. The galley's recipe database would be a global affair, and a shared meal might feature Japanese miso soup grown from Martian soybeans alongside a curry inspired by Indian spices cultivated in the hydroponic gardens. This isn't just about comfort food, it's a powerful way to combat nostalgia and homesickness while building a shared identity that is greater than the sum of its parts. It ensures that no single cultural narrative becomes dominant, preventing the kind of groupthink that can stifle innovation and create social hierarchies. By valuing each person's cultural heritage, the colony tells every member that their entire identity is welcome here, that they don't need to leave a part of themselves behind on Earth to become a Martian. This creates a profound sense of psychological safety and belonging, which is the bedrock of trust and cooperation. Ultimately, this commitment to inclusivity, of neurotype, of cognitive style, of culture, is the wisest investment the colony can make. It is the key that unlocks the full potential of human adaptability, creating a society that is not fragile and uniform, but resilient and dynamic, capable of drawing upon a vast toolkit of human experience to meet the unknown challenges of a new world. This shift in mindset from being a temporary visitor to a permanent resident is perhaps the most profound psychological transition any human has ever been asked to make. For the first few years, the mindset will be that of a long-duration expedition. Every action is framed by a mission timeline, every hardship endured with the knowledge that eventually there will be a return to the green and blue world hanging in the sky. But as months stretch into years and the initial mission parameters are met and exceeded, a quiet, unsettling question begins to form in the back of every colonist's mind. What if this isn't a mission with an end date? What if this is simply life? This moment of existential reckoning requires a conscious, collective effort to navigate. The colony's leadership and psychological support systems must guide this transition with immense care, helping individuals reframe their entire sense of identity. They are no longer astronauts on a posting, they are pioneers. They are no longer employees of a space agency, they are the founding citizens of a new branch of human civilization. This isn't about giving up on Earth, but about expanding the definition of home to encompass an entire new world. To make this new world feel like home, colonists must be given the tools to form a deep, personal attachment to Mars itself. This goes far beyond appreciating its stark beauty from inside a habitation module. It requires actively engaging with the environment in a way that transforms it from an alien landscape into a familiar territory. Exploration becomes less about pure science and more about a sense of place. Geologists will still map and sample, but they will also be encouraged to name features, not with cold, official designations, but with names that have personal or collective meaning. That crater over the ridge might become Hope's Rest, named for the first successful landing. That unusual rock formation might be the Sentinel, a landmark used for navigation on rover trips. This act of naming is a primal human impulse to claim and understand a space, to weave it into a story. Beyond exploration, the most powerful tool for attachment is cultivation. The act of gardening, of tending to plants in Martian soil, even if it's heavily processed and enclosed, is a transformative ritual. It is a partnership with the planet. A colonist who carefully nurtures a potato plant from a sprout to a harvest isn't just growing food. They are literally drawing life from the barren ground. They are creating a cycle of growth and renewal that is entirely Martian. This connection to the land, however manufactured it starts, fosters a sense of stewardship and belonging that no amount of imported supplies from Earth can ever provide. This tangible connection is reinforced by a powerful, overarching narrative, one that is consciously woven into the fabric of daily life through education, conversation, and ceremony. The story can no longer be, "We are here to see if we can survive." The new story must be, "We are here to stay, and we are building the future." This narrative frames every task, no matter how mundane, as a brick in the foundation of a permanent home. Fixing a leaking pipe isn't just maintenance, it's fortifying your home for the next decade. Teaching a child about Martian geology isn't just a science lesson, it's giving them the knowledge to understand their own world. The colony's artists, writers, and musicians will be vital here, creating works that imagine a Martian future centuries hence, depicting bustling cities under vast domes, green valleys where deserts now exist, and a people who look to the stars not as a destination, but as a neighborhood. These stories provide a vision to strive for, a reason to invest emotionally in the long-term future, making the sacrifices of today feel worth it for the promise of tomorrow. The ultimate expression of this permanence is, of course, the arrival of families and the birth of the first generation of true Martians. This changes everything. The calculus of risk shifts dramatically. Safety protocols are no longer just about protecting highly trained professionals who understood the dangers. They are about protecting children who have known no other world. Education expands from training mission specialists to raising well-rounded citizens who understand their unique place in human history. The colony's social structures must evolve to accommodate the beautiful, chaotic complexity of family life. Parental leave, schools, playgrounds, and the delicate task of explaining to a child why they can't go outside without a suit, or why grandma lives on a planet so far away it looks like a star. This evolution from a crew to a society brings with it all the challenges of any human community, but also its greatest joys. It brings the profound love and commitment of parents to their children, the forming of lifelong friendships that began in the nursery, and the creation of a shared cultural identity that is entirely separate from Earth. The colony is no longer a project. It is a living, breathing culture with its own traditions, its own inside jokes, its own history, and its own future. This transition, supported by continuous psychological care that helps individuals process this incredible journey, is what allows the colony to finally, truly flourish. It becomes a home not because it is safe or comfortable, but because it is loved. And as this new society puts down its roots, it will find an unexpected partner in its journey, an artificial intelligence designed to understand and support the very human heart of this endeavor. And seamlessly woven into this daily fabric of community and connection will be another set of partners, ones made not of flesh and blood, but of code and alloy. Artificial intelligence and robotics will evolve far beyond their roles as mere tools on Mars, becoming integral companions and a foundational layer of the colony's psychological support system. This isn't about cold, impersonal automation. It's about designing technology with a deep understanding of human emotional needs, creating a seamless partnership that alleviates burdens and enriches daily life. The AI that manages the life support systems will be the same one that notices a colonist's sleep patterns have become irregular and might gently suggest an adjustment to their lighting schedule or recommend a calming soundscape for the evening. It functions as a pervasive, benevolent nervous system for the entire habitat, one that is always monitoring, always learning, and always looking for ways to optimize not just for efficiency, but for human well-being. For the moments when a colonist needs to talk but perhaps isn't ready to burden a fellow crewmate, AI chatbots will offer an always available, judgment-free ear. These aren't the frustrating automated phone trees we know today, but sophisticated digital entities trained in the principles of empathetic listening and basic therapeutic techniques. A colonist feeling isolated after a difficult day could have a conversation with an AI that remembers their personal history, their preferred coping mechanisms, and can guide them through a brief mindfulness exercise or help them reframe a negative thought pattern. This provides an immediate outlet for emotional pressure, a way to process feelings before they escalate into something more serious. It's mental health first aid, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without an appointment and without any fear of social stigma. This constant availability is crucial in an environment where there are no other options, acting as a first line of defense for psychological well-being. Physically, robots will become ubiquitous helpers, taking on the repetitive, dangerous, or simply tedious tasks that drain mental energy and increase cognitive load. Imagine a colonist returning from a long extravehicular activity, tired and hungry. Instead of facing a stack of dirty suits that need cleaning and recharging, a team of nimble, multi-armed utility bots is already there, handling the meticulous decontamination and maintenance process. In the greenhouse, automated tenders monitor plant health, adjust nutrients, and handle the harvesting, freeing up the human botanists to focus on experimentation and research. This delegation of mundane chores does more than just save time. It actively reduces stress and prevents burnout. By offloading these tasks to reliable machines, the colonists preserve their precious mental bandwidth for the work that requires human creativity, problem-solving, and interpersonal connection. The robots become silent partners in the mission, their relentless efficiency creating the space for their human crewmates to truly thrive. The most advanced of these robotic partners will be designed explicitly for social interaction. These social robots, with expressive faces capable of conveying empathy through subtle gestures and calming vocal tones, can offer companionship during inherently solitary tasks. A colonist working a long overnight shift monitoring communications might have a social bot stationed with them, one that can engage in simple conversation, play games, or just provide a reassuring presence. For someone struggling with loneliness, especially after a communication delay has made contact with Earth feel distant, these robots can offer a form of interaction that staves off the worst feelings of isolation. Their design is a masterclass in balancing familiarity and function. They are crafted to be approachable and engaging, but carefully avoid tipping into the unsettling, uncanny valley where they appear too human. They are clearly machines, and that clarity is intentional, preserving the sanctity and uniqueness of human-to-human relationships. This distinction is the cornerstone of the ethical guidelines governing this technology. The prime directive for all AI and robotic systems is that they must enhance human connection, never replace it. The systems are programmed to recognize their own limitations. An AI counselor, after a long conversation, might be the one to suggest, "It sounds like you might benefit from talking this through with Dr. Evans during your check-in tomorrow. Would you like me to schedule that for you?" The social robot might be the one to notice a colonist has been alone for too long and gently prompt, "The community meal is starting in 10 minutes. Shall we walk over together?" The technology acts as a bridge back to human community, not a substitute for it. This ensures that the colony remains a society of people who care for each other, who rely on each other, and who grow together, using their artificial partners as tools to support those irreplaceable human bonds, creating a holistic and deeply resilient psychological ecosystem for their incredible new home. Yet, even with the most advanced predictive models and carefully designed support systems, the human mind will inevitably chart its own unique and unpredictable course on the Red Planet. We can prepare for the known stressors of isolation and confinement, but the deepest psychological challenges will likely be the ones we never saw coming: the strange paradoxes, the surprising twists of perception, and the entirely novel emotional landscapes that only a place like Mars can reveal. Imagine standing at a large observation window, looking out at the vast, empty expanse of the Martian surface. You feel a sudden, simultaneous surge of two opposing terrors. The immense, yawning emptiness outside, stretching for millions of miles with no other living soul, triggers a deep-seated agoraphobia, a fear of the boundless and the unknown. Yet in the very same moment, the knowledge that you are separated from that void by just a few inches of reinforced glass and polymer can make the walls of your habitat feel terrifyingly thin, sparking an intense claustrophobic urge to retreat deeper into the core of the structure. This bizarre clash of sensations, feeling trapped and exposed all at once, is a psychological paradox that no Earth-based analog can truly replicate, a unique form of anxiety born from living in a tiny oasis of life surrounded by an infinite desert. Alongside these paradoxes will come profound surprises, moments of breathtaking cognitive shift that could redefine a colonist's entire sense of reality. Many astronauts in orbit around Earth report experiencing the overview effect, a sudden, life-altering awareness of our planet's fragility and unity. On Mars, this may evolve into something even more powerful, a Martian perspective. A colonist might be out on a routine geological survey when they suddenly stop, looking back at the distant, shimmering dome of their habitat, a tiny bubble of blue and green light against the rust-colored desolation. In that moment, the immense scale of their journey and the sheer audacity of their presence there could crash over them. They are not just an employee on a mission, they are a cell in the first organ of a new planetary organism. This awe-inspiring perspective can be a tremendous source of strength and purpose, but it can also be deeply isolating, underscoring the incredible distance from the rest of humanity in a way that is both beautiful and terrifying. This isn't a stressor to be eliminated, but a profound experience to be integrated, and the psychological support systems must be agile enough to help colonists navigate these peaks of existential wonder as well as the valleys of despair. The Martian environment itself, with its unique sights, sounds, and constant low-grade threats, will also be a fertile ground for the development of new, context-specific phobias and superstitions. A colonist might develop an irrational but powerful aversion to the particular sound of a certain pump in the life support system, associating its hum with the constant threat of system failure. Another might become convinced that a specific, seemingly random ritual, like tapping a console 3 times before a data upload, is necessary for good luck, a superstition born from a desire to exert control over an incredibly complex and unpredictable technological environment. The perpetual whispering hiss of sand against the outer hull during a dust storm could become a sound that triggers deep anxiety long after the storm has passed. These aren't signs of weakness, they are the mind's creative and entirely normal attempts to make sense of and manage an utterly alien reality. The colony's culture will need to treat these developments not as pathologies to be cured, but as data points to be understood, adapting its support strategies to address the unique psychological triggers of the Martian context. The key to navigating this unpredictable psychological terrain won't be a perfect pre-written manual, but a deeply embedded cultural ethos of flexibility and continuous learning. The psychological support systems themselves must be designed as living, responsive entities. The constant ethical monitoring of biometric and behavioral data we discussed earlier will serve a crucial second purpose. It will act as an early warning system for these emerging, unforeseen trends. If the AI detects that 5 different colonists all showed elevated stress markers during a specific, non-emergency maintenance task, it can flag this for the human psychology team. Perhaps the task involves a cramped space that is triggering unexpected claustrophobia, or maybe the procedure is unintentionally designed in a way that feels unnecessarily risky. This real-time feedback loop allows for proactive adjustments to training, task design, and even habitat layout, evolving the environment in response to the colonists' lived experience. The goal is to create a psychological ecosystem that learns and grows alongside the people it supports. This requires a fundamental shift in how the colonists view their own mental health. Embracing the unknown and even the uncomfortable must become a core tenet of the colony's identity. A surprise emotional reaction isn't a failure of the system or the individual, it's a discovery. It's a new piece of data in the grand experiment of living on Mars. Weekly community meetings might include not just a review of technical systems, but a psychological weather report, where colonists are encouraged to share these strange new feelings and reactions without judgment. A person might say, "I noticed I felt incredibly anxious yesterday when I was alone in the greenhouse, and I think it's because the silence felt different, more absolute." And that observation becomes a shared puzzle for the group to understand and address. This open dialogue transforms surprises from personal struggles into communal opportunities for growth and adaptation, ensuring that the emotional blueprint for the colony is never a static document, but a dynamic, ever-evolving conversation. This hard-won adaptability, forged in the fires of unexpected challenges, may ultimately become the most valuable export from Mars, teaching those of us on Earth profound new lessons about the resilience and flexibility of the human spirit. The emotional blueprint of the first Mars colony stands as a powerful testament to a profound shift in our understanding of survival itself. We are finally acknowledging that the most advanced life support systems, the most robust engineering, and the most brilliant technological innovations are ultimately useless if the human spirit inside them falters. This entire endeavor, from the meticulous psychometric profiling to the design of communal spaces that sing with life, forces us to confront a simple, beautiful truth. The future of space civilization is not just a technological challenge, it is a human one. It will be shaped not by the cold logic of code and steel alone, but by the warm, messy, and magnificent complexities of our emotions, our relationships, and our shared dreams. We are building a new world not just for humanity, but out of the very essence of what it means to be human. In many ways, the harsh, isolated environment of Mars acts as a powerful magnifying glass held up to the human condition. The challenges the colonists will face, isolation, confinement, the constant background hum of risk, are not unique to space. They are simply intensified, stripped of the comforting buffers and distractions of Earth. In designing systems to help them thrive, we are forced to innovate in our understanding of resilience, community, and meaning. The proactive mental health monitoring, the focus on emotional literacy, the architectural choices that soothe the subconscious, these are not just solutions for Mars. They are a masterclass in applied psychology that holds a mirror up to our own lives on Earth. How many of us could benefit from a greater awareness of our own stress biomarkers? How many of our communities could be strengthened by the deliberate, thoughtful design of social spaces that foster genuine connection? How many of our workplaces could learn from the Martian emphasis on purpose, where every task is visibly connected to a larger, meaningful goal? The lessons we are learning for the red planet are, in reality, a gift for the blue one, offering us new tools to build more resilient, supportive, and mentally healthy societies right here at home. This journey into the psychological unknown is perhaps the most daring part of the entire Martian adventure. We are venturing into uncharted territory, not just of space, but of the mind. We are conducting the most ambitious psychological and social experiment in human history, and we are doing it with intention, with compassion, and with a deep respect for the individuals who will be living it. As we look to the stars with ambition and hope, we now carry with us a deeper wisdom. We understand that our greatest adventures must be matched by our deepest self-knowledge. The ultimate success of the first Mars colony will be measured not just in the oxygen it produces or the data it sends back, but in the laughter echoing through its corridors, the strength of the hands that hold each other in times of crisis, and the quiet, unwavering knowledge in every colonist's heart that they are home. Thank you for exploring this incredible frontier of the human mind with us. We would love to hear your thoughts on how psychology will shape our future among the stars. Share your ideas and continue the conversation in the